with chaos and opposition to divine order. Their constant battles with the gods mirror Cain's defiance and the chaos he introduces into the world. In Greek mythology, the story of the Titans, the predecessors of the Olympian gods, parallels the rebellion and fall of Cain. The Titans, led by Kronos, were the first rulers of the universe, but their reign ended in conflict and destruction. Much like Cain, the Titans were cast out and punished for their defiance. The Theogony by Hesiod tells of the Titanomachy, where the Titans were overthrown by Zeus and the Olympians. This cosmic battle echoes Cain's struggle and ultimate downfall as he is marked and cast out, wandering the earth. In Sumerian tradition, Cain's story resonates with the myth of Kur, the primordial dragon and the embodiment of chaos. Kur, like Cain, represents a force that challenges the established order. In the Enuma Elish and other Sumerian texts, Kur is portrayed as a monstrous being who battles the gods, embodying the destructive forces of nature and rebellion. Kur's role as a chaotic force that must be subdued by the gods mirrors Cain's own narrative, where his actions lead to a legacy of strife and conflict that impacts the world and its inhabitants. Across these ancient texts and traditions, Cain emerges not just as the firstborn son of Adam, but as a figure whose story reflects the struggles of primordial beings across cultures. From the Bible and alphabet of Ben Sira to the Rig Veda, Prose Edda, Theogony, and Sumerian myths, Cain's narrative of rebellion, downfall, and legacy is a tale shared by all of humanity. This story transcends cultures, showing us that the themes of creation, conflict, and chaos are universal, woven into the fabric of human history and belief. Seth. Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve, holds a unique place in biblical and ancient texts, recognized as both a son of God and a powerful deity whose dominion over storms and kingship extends across cultures and mythologies. His story not only continues the divine lineage of Adam, but also connects him to a broader narrative of power and authority in the ancient world. In Genesis 4 verse 25, we read, "And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son, and called his name Seth, for God, said she, hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew." Seth is seen as a divinely appointed continuation of Adam's line, a new hope after the tragedy of Abel's death. The Book of Jubilees, an ancient Jewish text, reinforces Seth's identity as a son of God. Jubilees 4:10-11 describes Seth as a perfect man, like unto Adam his father, for God had made him in the image of his likeness. This presents Seth as a reflection of God's image, continuing the divine lineage. In the Talmud, Sanhedrin 38b, Rabbi Simeon Bar Yochai states, Seth, who was born in the image of Adam, the first man, had a special relationship with God. This further establishes Seth as a son in the divine lineage, one with a direct connection to the Creator. Seth was given to Adam by God to help protect the world from the chaos brought by the Titans or Nephilim. God bestowed upon Seth the power to control these forces, positioning him as a son of God, or what people often refer to as a god himself. In this role, Seth became the king of all gods, much like Zeus, Thor, or Indra, deities known for their supreme authority and direct connection to the divine. He is also recognized as a god of storms, a powerful figure whose influence extends across various mythologies. In Hinduism, Seth parallels Indra, the king of the gods and the god of storms and rain. Born from Kashyapa and Aditi, Indra represents divine authority over the elements. According to some sources, Kashyapa had two wives, Diti, who gave birth to the Titans or Nephilim, and Aditi, who gave the Rig Veda, one of the oldest Hindu texts, praises Indra as the warrior god who wields the thunderbolt, defeating the serpent Vritra and releasing the waters of heaven. The text states, "He who wields the thunderbolt, he who is the king of the gods, let us praise that Indra." Like Seth, Indra embodies divine authority, ruling over the heavens with a stormy power that commands both fear and respect. In Norse mythology, Seth finds his parallel in Thor, the mighty god of thunder. Thor, the son of Odin, is known for his incredible strength and his ability to control storms with his hammer, Mjolnir. The Prose Edda describes Thor's battles against the giants, where he wields his hammer to protect both gods and men from the forces of chaos. Much like Seth, Thor is a figure of immense power, whose dominion over storms makes him both a protector and a ruler. In Greek mythology, Seth is mirrored in Zeus, the king of the gods and the god of the sky and thunder. Zeus is the ruler of Mount Olympus and the most powerful of all the gods, known for wielding the thunderbolt as his weapon. In Hesiod's Theogony, Zeus defeats the Titans and establishes his rule over the universe, bringing order to the cosmos. Like Seth, Zeus is not just a god of storms but also the supreme ruler whose authority is unquestioned among the gods. In Sumerian tradition, Seth's counterpart is Enlil, the god of storms and air, who also plays a central role in the pantheon. Enlil, much like Seth, is associated with the wind and storms, controlling the weather and wielding immense power over both gods and men. In the Sumerian king list and other texts, Enlil is portrayed as the one who grants kingship and determines the fate of the world, establishing his dominion in a way that echoes Seth's own rise to power. Across these ancient texts and traditions, Seth is portrayed not just as the son of Adam but as a son of God, and beyond that, a god of storms whose reign as the king of gods is mirrored in the stories of Indra, Thor, Zeus, and Enlil. From the Bible and Talmud to the Rig Veda, Prose Edda, Theogony, and Sumerian king list, Seth stands as a reminder of the powerful and universal themes of divine kingship and the mastery of the elements. The figure of Seth, known by many names and depicted in various forms, represents the common thread that ties together the world's oldest myths and religious traditions. As we explore these ancient narratives, we are reminded that the story of Seth, as the son of God and the god of storms, is a tale shared by all of humanity, transcending time, culture, and belief. Abel. Then here is the question, so where is human from? Welcome to our exploration of a profound story of transformation and renewal. Today, we delve into the biblical account of Abel's death, his soul's cry for justice, and the divine act of reshaping humanity from the earth. We'll also explore ancient myths that echo this theme of creation from clay. Let's embark on this journey through sacred texts and ancient traditions. Our story begins in the book of Genesis. Cain, driven by jealousy, kills his brother Abel. This tragic event is detailed in Genesis 4 verse 8. Cain said to Abel, "Let's go out to the field." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Abel's death resonates deeply with the divine. In Genesis 4 verse 10, God reveals that Abel's blood cries out from the ground. The Lord said, "What have you done?" Listen. Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Abel, a man of faith, offered a sacrifice that pleased God. Even after his death, his righteousness continues to speak, as highlighted in Hebrews 11 verse 4, by faith Abel offered God a better sacrifice than Cain did. By faith he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith Abel still speaks, even though he is dead. In response to Abel's plea for justice and the divine need for renewal, God reshapes the earth where Abel's blood was shed to create a new being, humanity. Genesis 2 verse 7 describes this act. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. This act of creation parallels ancient myths from various cultures that depict humans being formed from earth or clay. Let's explore these ancient traditions. 1. Mesopotamian mythology, the creation of humans in the Enuma Elish. In Mesopotamian mythology, one of the most important creation stories is found in the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic. This ancient text tells the story of how the gods created the world and, ultimately, humanity. In the Enuma Elish, the chief god Marduk defeats the primordial goddess Tiamat, who represents chaos and the sea. After his victory, Marduk creates the world from her body. But the gods still needed beings to serve them, so the decision was made to create humans. The goddess Aruru, who is often associated with creation and fertility, was tasked with creating humans. She mixed clay from the earth with the blood of the god Kingu, who had been a loyal follower of Tiamat. Kingu had been given the tablets of destiny, which controlled the fate of all things, and after his defeat, his blood was used to give life to the first humans. By combining Kingu's divine blood with the clay, Aruru created humans who would serve the gods. This creation story emphasizes that humans were made from both earthly and divine elements, making them unique among living creatures. 2. Sumerian mythology, the creation of humans in the Atrahasis epic. In Sumerian mythology, the creation of humans is detailed in the Atrahasis epic, a story that explains not only how humans were created but also why they were made in the first place. The story begins with the gods needing workers to carry out the hard labor of maintaining the earth. Initially, the younger gods were forced to do all the work, such as digging canals and tending to the land, but they grew tired of it and rebelled against the higher gods. To solve this problem, the god Enki, also known as Ea in Akkadian mythology, who was the god of wisdom and water, suggested creating a new being to take over these laborious tasks. Enki and the mother goddess Ninhursag, also called Ninmah or Mummy, worked together to create humans. The first humans were formed from clay, but to give them life and a soul, Enki mixed the clay with the blood of a slain god named Gillen. This combination of divine blood and earthly clay resulted in the creation of humans, who were then tasked with serving the gods by working the land and performing the duties that the younger gods no longer wanted to do. 3. Greek mythology, the creation of humans by Prometheus. In Greek mythology, the creation of humans is attributed to the Titan Prometheus, a clever and resourceful figure who played a crucial role in the lives of mortals. According to Hesiod's Theogony and Works and Days, Prometheus shaped the first humans out of clay. Prometheus, whose name means forethought, was known for his wisdom and cunning. He molded the clay into human form and gave them life, but unlike the gods, these beings were mortal and lacked the immortality of the divine. Prometheus was sympathetic to the plight of humans, who were weak and vulnerable compared to the gods. To help them survive, he famously stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. This act of defiance angered Zeus, the king of the gods, who punished Prometheus by having him chained to a rock where an eagle would eat his liver every day. Despite his punishment, Prometheus remained a friend to humans, and his gift of fire symbolizes the dawn of civilization, allowing humans to cook food, stay warm, and develop technology. Egyptian mythology, the creation of humans by Khnum. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the creation of humans is often attributed to the god Khnum, a deity associated with the Nile, fertility, and creation. Khnum was believed to be a potter who molded the bodies of humans on his potter's wheel. Khnum was typically depicted as a man with the head of a ram, and he was considered the guardian of the source of the Nile River. The Nile's annual flooding was essential for agriculture, and Khnum's role as a creator god was closely linked to the life-giving properties of the river. According to Egyptian beliefs, Khnum would take clay from the Nile River and fashion it into the shape of a human on his potter's wheel. He carefully crafted each person, giving them physical form and, in some versions of the myth, also shaping their Ka, or life force. Once the body was formed, Khnum would breathe life into the clay figure, completing the creation process. This act of creation was seen as a continuous process, with Khnum constantly shaping new humans to replace those who had died. As a result, Khnum was worshipped as a god of creation and fertility, essential to the cycle of life and death. 5. Hindu mythology, the creation of humans by Manu. In Hindu mythology, Brahma is one of the principal gods in Hinduism, alongside Vishnu and Shiva, who together form the Trimurti, the Hindu Trinity. Brahma's specific role is that of the creator, responsible for the creation of the universe and all living beings. According to the Vishnu Purana and similar texts, Brahma is tasked with the creation of the physical world, including the heavens, earth, and all creatures that inhabit it. His role as the creator is central to the Hindu understanding of the cosmos. Brahma is described as creating the first humans from the elements of the earth. This creation process often involves Brahma taking the material from the earth, such as clay or soil, and shaping it into the form of humans. Once Brahma has formed these human shapes from the earth, he breathes life into them, infusing them with prana, life force or vital energy. This act of breathing life into the earthly forms is what gives humans their souls and consciousness, making them living beings. 6. Chinese mythology, the creation of humans by Nuwa. In Chinese mythology, the creation of humans is attributed to the goddess Nuwa, a deity associated with creation, fertility, and marriage. According to the myth, Nuwa lived in a world that was still being formed. The earth was barren and lifeless, and she felt lonely without any other beings around her. To alleviate her loneliness, Nuwa decided to create living creatures. Nuwa began by creating animals, but she soon realized that these creatures were not enough to fill the world with the life and companionship she desired. So, she took yellow clay from the earth and molded it into the shape of human beings. She carefully crafted each figure, making them in her image and giving them the ability to speak, think, and reproduce. After creating the first humans, Nuwa breathed life into them, and they began to move and live. Satisfied with her work, Nuwa continued to create more humans, eventually filling the world with people. She is also credited with repairing the sky after it was damaged, further solidifying her role as a creator and protector of humanity. 7. Mesoamerican mythology, the creation of humans in the Popol Vuh. The Popol Vuh is a sacred text of the Maya civilization that contains one of the most important creation myths of Mesoamerican culture. According to the Popol Vuh, the gods attempted to create humans several times before finally succeeding. The first humans were made of mud, but they were weak and incapable of surviving, so the gods destroyed them. The gods then tried to create humans from wood, but these beings lacked souls and emotions, so they, too, were destroyed. Finally, the gods decided to create humans from maize dough, a material sacred to the Maya. The maize was ground and mixed with water to form a dough, which the gods used to shape the bodies of the first true humans. These new humans were able to think, speak, and worship the gods, fulfilling the purpose for which they were created. The creation of humans from maize reflects the importance of maize in Maya culture as a staple food and a symbol of life and sustenance. The Popol Vuh emphasizes the connection between humans and the natural world, particularly the crops that sustained the Maya civilization. These detailed accounts from various ancient cultures provide a glimpse into how different civilizations understood the origins of humanity. From clay mixed with divine blood in Mesopotamian and Sumerian myths to the careful crafting of humans by gods like Prometheus, Khnum, and Nuwa, these stories reflect a shared. Thank you for watching until the end. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. May God bless us all.
Leader, who parted the Red Sea and led thee out of Egypt. But have you
ever wondered what happened to his sons Gershom and Eleazar? Why aren't they in the spotlight like Aaron's descendants? Did they simply vanish, or is there more to their story? In this video we'll uncover the hidden legacy of Moses' sons, exploring the Bible's intriguing clues about their roles and why they never rose to prominence. Their story holds surprising lessons about God's purpose, timing, and the power of serving faithfully behind the scenes. If you've ever felt like you're in the background, not seen or celebrated, this episode is for you. We'll reveal why Gershom and Eleazar are more important than you think, and why their lives matter to us today. So stick around to discover the surprising reasons Moses' sons were not in the spotlight, how their hidden legacy still impacts us today, and powerful lessons that will inspire you to embrace your unique role in God's plan. Don't miss this eye-opening journey into a rarely told story from the Bible. If you enjoy uncovering hidden truths and deepening your understanding of God's Word, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this with others who love exploring the Bible's secrets. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below, and let's grow together in wisdom. Let's dive in. The story of Moses' sons, Gershom and Eleazar, begins during Moses' time in Midian, a crucial period in Moses' life when he was in exile from Egypt. After fleeing Egypt for killing an Egyptian taskmaster, Moses found refuge in Midian, where he met and married Zipporah, the daughter of Jethro, a priest of Midian. Exodus chapter 2 verses 15 to 22. It was during this time that Moses and Zipporah had their two sons, Gershom and Eleazar. The Bible first introduces us to Gershom in Exodus chapter 2 verse 22. Zipporah gave birth to a son, and Moses named him Gershom, saying, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." The name Gershom comes from the Hebrew root word ger, meaning sojourner or foreigner. This name reflects Moses' deep sense of displacement and alienation during his time in Midian. For Moses, who had grown up in the Egyptian palace as the adopted son of Pharaoh's daughter, this was a stark contrast. He went from royalty to being a fugitive in a foreign land, shepherding sheep far from the life he once knew. Gershom's name captures this feeling of being an outsider, reminding us of the emotional and spiritual journey Moses was undergoing at the time. The birth of Moses' second son, Eleazar, is mentioned later in Exodus, chapter 18, verses 3-4. One son was named Gershom, for Moses said, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." And the other was named Eleazar, for he said, "My father's God was my helper. He saved me from the sword of Pharaoh." Eleazar's name means "God is my help," which memorializes God's protection over Moses when he fled Egypt. This name serves as a testimony to God's deliverance, reinforcing the idea that, despite the challenges Moses faced, God's hand was with him, guiding and protecting him through his journey. The emphasis on God's deliverance is not just a personal reflection of Moses' gratitude, but also a powerful reminder of God's faithfulness to his people. Gershom and Eleazar's roles in Moses' journey were unlike those of other prominent biblical families, such as the sons of Aaron. The sons of Moses did not inherit leadership roles or play significant parts in the events of the Exodus and beyond. When God called Moses from the burning bush in Exodus 3, Gershom and Eleazar were still young. Moses, hesitant and feeling unworthy of the monumental task God was assigning him, was accompanied by his family, including his wife and sons, on his initial journey back to Egypt. Exodus chapter 4 verse 20 highlights this moment. So Moses took his wife and sons, put them on a donkey, and started back to Egypt. And he took the staff of God in his hand. This verse signifies that Moses' family was a part of the beginning of his mission, despite their proximity to one of the most defining moments in biblical history. Gershom and Eleazar's involvement remained largely unrecorded in the subsequent narrative. Their presence highlights the personal side of Moses' life, balancing his divine mission with his responsibilities as a husband and father. A pivotal moment involving Moses' family occurs in Exodus chapter 4 verses 24-26. At a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him. But Zipporah took a flint knife, cut off her son's foreskin, and touched Moses' feet with it. "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me," she said. So the Lord let him alone. This dramatic event, likely involving Gershom, emphasizes the importance of the covenant of circumcision which God had established with Abraham. Genesis chapter 17 verses 10-14. Circumcision was a sign of being set apart as God's people, and Moses' neglect of this covenantal act almost led to his death. Zipporah's swift action to circumcise their son not only saved Moses, but also re-established the family's alignment with God's commands. This incident underlines the broader biblical principle that even those chosen by God, like Moses, must adhere to his covenantal laws. It also highlights the critical role of Moses' family in supporting his divine mission, even in ways that are not always visible or recognized. So now, why did Gershom and Eleazar fade into the background? Despite their involvement in the early stages of Moses' journey, Gershom and Eleazar do not continue to play prominent roles in the unfolding story. Several factors might explain their relative obscurity. Number 1. Focus on Aaron's lineage. God appointed Aaron and his descendants as the priests of Israel, a significant role that required great responsibility and visibility. Exodus chapter 28 verses 1-3. Aaron's sons, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, were directly involved in the priestly functions and the sacrificial system, which was central to Israelite worship. This focus on Aaron's family may have intentionally limited the visibility of Moses' sons to prevent any confusion about spiritual leadership. Number 2, the emphasis on Moses' unique role. Moses' role as prophet, leader, and mediator between God and the Israelites was unique and unparalleled. his calling did not automatically extend to his sons. Deuteronomy chapter 34 verses 10 to 12 states, "Since then, no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, who did all those signs and wonders the Lord sent him to do in Egypt, to Pharaoh, and to all his officials and to his whole land. For no one has ever shown the mighty power or performed the awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of all Israel." This passage underscores that Moses' leadership was distinctive, and his sons were not positioned to inherit his prophetic or leadership roles. Number 3, possibility of returning to Midian. There is a possibility, as suggested by some traditions, that Gershom and Eleazar may have returned to Midian with Zipporah during the Exodus journey. Exodus chapter 18 verses 1 to 6 tells of Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, bringing Zipporah and the sons back to meet Moses at Mount Sinai. This passage suggests that Moses' family may not have been consistently present during the dramatic events in Egypt and the wilderness. This reunion indicates a possible separation, which may explain their limited presence during significant moments of Israel's journey. Although Gershom and Eleazar's roles are not prominently featured in the Exodus story, 1 Chronicles chapter 23 verses 14 to 17 provides a brief genealogy that shows their descendants continued to serve in Israel. The sons of Moses, the man of God, were counted as part of the tribe of Levi. The sons of Moses, Gershom and Eleazar. The descendants of Gershom, Shubael was the first. The descendants of Eleazar, Rehabiah was the first. Eleazar had no other sons, but the sons of Rehabiah were very numerous. The descendants of Gershom and Eleazar were counted among the Levites, the tribe chosen by God to assist in the care and service of the tabernacle, and later the temple. While Aaron's descendants were designated as priests, the broader Levitical line was tasked with various supportive roles, including the maintenance of the sanctuary, guarding the temple, and assisting the priests. This distinction is outlined in Numbers, chapter 3, verses 5 to 9. The Lord said to Moses, "Bring the tribe of Levi, and present them to Aaron the priest to assist him. They are to perform duties for him and for the whole community at the tent of meeting by doing the work of the tabernacle. They are to take care of all the furnishings of the tent of meeting, fulfilling the obligations of the Israelites by doing the work of the tabernacle." Although Gershom and Eleazar's descendants were part of this broader Levitical service, the specific details of their roles are not elaborated upon, indicating their functions were not as celebrated or high-profile as the priestly duties. The line of Gershom, Shubael's role. Gershom's lineage is specifically mentioned in 1 Chronicles, chapter 23 verse 16, where Shubael, sometimes spelled Shebuel, is named as the first of Gershom's descendants. Shubael later appears in 1 Chronicles chapter 24 verse 20, where he is noted among the leaders of the Levites. As for the rest of the descendants of Levi, from the sons of Amram, Shubael; from the sons of Shubael, Jedaiah. Shubael's presence among the Levites indicates that he had a leadership role, though it was not equivalent to the priesthood of Aaron's descendants. This subtle, yet significant acknowledgement reflects that Gershom's line continued to serve faithfully within the Levitical structure, contributing to the worship and organization of Israel. The line of Eleazar, Rehabiah's numerous descendants. Eleazar's line is noted as having many descendants, particularly through Rehabiah, as highlighted in 1 Chronicles, chapter 23 verse 17. The specific mention that the sons of Rehabiah were very numerous indicates that Eleazar's lineage grew substantially and had a notable presence among the Levites. The emphasis on their numbers suggests that they were a flourishing family within the tribe, even if they did not hold prominent titles. The importance of Rehabiah's descendants can also be seen in the way Chronicles emphasizes their proliferation. This contrasts with many other lines that diminished over time, reflecting a blessing of fruitfulness upon Eleazar's family, reminiscent of God's promise to increase and bless his people. Genesis chapter 22 verse 17, "I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore." Though they did not achieve high priestly status, the numerous descendants of Rehabiah continued to serve in supportive and possibly administrative roles within the Levitical duties, contributing to the stability and continuity of the community's worship practices. The comparison between the descendants of Aaron and those of Moses highlights a deliberate distinction made by God. Aaron's line was specifically chosen for priesthood, a position of spiritual leadership and visibility that came with great responsibility and privilege. In contrast, the descendants of Moses were integrated into the broader Levitical service without special recognition. This distinction is further underscored in 1 Chronicles chapter 24, where Aaron's sons are detailed with specific priestly courses, responsibilities, and honors, while the sons of Moses are only briefly mentioned. 1 Chronicles chapter 24 verses 1-2 states, "These were the divisions of the descendants of Aaron. The sons of Aaron were Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. But Nadab and Abihu died before their father did, and they had no sons, so Eleazar and Ithamar served as the priests." This clear delineation sets the sons of Aaron as the central figures in priestly functions, reinforcing the idea that God's callings are distinct and not always aligned with human expectations of inheritance and prominence. While Gershom and Eleazar may not have been prominent figures during their time, their lives and the legacy of their descendants still hold significant value for us today. Their story serves as a powerful reminder that God's purpose and timing often operate in ways that transcend human recognition and expectations. Here are some key lessons we can learn from their lives. The lives of Gershom and Eleazar teach us that not everyone is called to be in the spotlight, and that's perfectly aligned with God's design. While Moses' sons did not achieve the fame or recognition that their father did, their existence was still an integral part of God's unfolding plan. Their story highlights that God's purpose for each of us is unique, and that our lives hold meaning even when we are not at the forefront. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 beautifully encapsulates this truth. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. This verse reminds us that God's timing is perfect, even when it does not align with our own desires or expectations. Gershom and Eleazar's lives were significant in the time and roles God appointed for them, even if their contributions were not prominently displayed in the biblical narrative. Similarly, Romans chapter 8 verse 28 assures us that God works all things for good, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Just as God wove Gershom and Eleazar into the tapestry of Israel's history in a supporting role, he continues to weave our lives into his greater purpose, often in ways we may not fully understand. The lack of visible recognition does not diminish the value of our contributions when they are part of God's divine plan. Although Gershom and Eleazar were not famous, their descendants continued to serve God within the Levitical tribe. This legacy teaches us that the impact of our faithfulness often extends far beyond our immediate circumstances. We may not see the full effects of our obedience in our lifetime, but the seeds we plant can bear fruit for generations. Psalm chapter 112 verses 1-2 highlights the enduring legacy of the righteous. Blessed are those who fear the Lord, who find great delight in his commands. Their children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed. This scripture emphasizes that those who fear and obey God leave a lasting legacy that blesses future generations. Gershom and Eleazar's descendants, though not in the spotlight, were part of the Levitical service, contributing to the spiritual fabric of Israel. Their story reminds us that our faithfulness can influence those who come after us, even if we never receive recognition. Hebrews chapter 6 verse 10 also speaks to God's acknowledgement of our service. God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. This assurance underscores that God sees and values every act of service, whether it is seen by others or not. Gershom and Eleazar's descendants continued to fulfill their roles faithfully, and in doing so, they contributed to the ongoing worship and spiritual life of the community, Moses' life exemplifies that God's calling matters more than human recognition. Despite his great achievements, Moses faced immense challenges, doubts, and moments of obscurity. Similarly, his sons did not rise to fame, but their lives remind us that true importance lies not in status, but in our obedience to God. Philippians chapter 2 verses 3-4 provides a powerful reminder about the value of humility and service. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. Gershom and Eleazar's story is a testament to this principle. Their lives were not marked by selfish ambition or a quest for prominence. Instead, they fulfilled their roles quietly and faithfully. This humility serves as an example for us to focus on serving God and others, rather than seeking recognition. Additionally, 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 7 reveals God's perspective on what truly matters. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. This verse highlights that God values our inner devotion and obedience far more than external achievements or positions. Gershom and Eleazar, though not celebrated, were part of God's chosen people and played their part in the grand narrative of Israel's history. Their story teaches us that God's evaluation of our lives is based on our faithfulness, not our fame. Many people today struggle with feeling unnoticed or unimportant, especially when they are not in visible positions. The story of Gershom and Eleazar encourages us to find purpose in the roles God has assigned us, knowing that every act of service, no matter how small, is significant in His eyes. Just as the sons of Moses served without widespread recognition, we too may be called to serve in ways that are not immediately seen or celebrated. Trusting in God's greater plan helps us find contentment and fulfillment, even when our contributions seem small. The example of Gershom and Eleazar challenges us to prioritize obedience to God's calling over the pursuit of personal ambition. In a world that often glorifies status and visibility, their lives remind us that true fulfillment comes from aligning ourselves with God's will. In conclusion, so, where did the sons of Moses disappear to, and are they important? While their story may seem hidden in the pages of Scripture, it serves as a reminder that God's purposes are not always about being seen. Gershom and Eleazar's legacy is subtle, but it speaks of God's faithfulness and the importance of living in obedience to His call. Their absence in the biblical narrative is not a mark of insignificance, but rather a testament to God's unique plans for each of His people. Whether in the spotlight or in the background, every person has a role in God's greatest story. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Let's continue to uncover more hidden gems of the Bible together. God bless you, and see you next time. The story of this people is something that deserves to be widely known. Now, imagine if I told you that there was a group prior to the formation of Israel that already worshipped the Almighty God, even before Abraham. Indeed, the Shasu were an ancient and mysterious Semitic people who revered the same God who would later be recognized as the God of Israel. In this video, we will explore the mysteries surrounding this almost forgotten civilization, revelations that may transform our understanding of the origins of the worship of Yahweh. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to follow all the details of this fascinating discovery, the mystery of the worship of Yahweh before Israel. At first, the notion of a people before Israel who already worshipped the Almighty God might seem intriguing, even challenging. After all, it is common to associate the worship of the God of Abraham exclusively with the history of Israel. However, the Bible itself gives us clues that there were Semitic groups who, long before the emergence of Israel, already revered the supreme God. Many of these peoples, in fact, had a direct connection to Abraham. In the vast landscape of biblical narratives, there is one figure whose significance is undeniable, although often overlooked: Jethro, also known as Reuel. This remarkable character, priest of the Most High God, plays an essential role in the Old Testament, especially in the journey of Moses. His presence, though discreet, carries a profound impact, particularly in the Pentateuch, and, more specifically, in the book of Exodus. The story of Jethro reveals an often underestimated dimension, but offers an enriching perspective on the worship of the God of Israel in a period before the consolidation of the Israelite nation. After fleeing Egypt, Moses heads to the land of Midian, where he finds refuge with a Semitic priest, a descendant of both the Kenites and the Midianites. This man, devoted to the God of Abraham, welcomes Moses into his home and plays a significant role in his life. Known as Jethro, also called Reuel, he not only offers shelter, but also becomes a mentor to Moses during the 40 years he spends in Midian. During this time, Moses deepens his knowledge of the traditions, stories, and practices of the Semitic peoples and heritage to which he himself belonged. In addition to absorbing teachings related to the God of Abraham, Moses comes into contact with the customs of other Semitic peoples, expanding his spiritual and cultural understanding. His marriage to Zipporah, one of Jethro's daughters, further solidifies this bond, connecting him intimately to his ancestral roots. The figure of Jethro stands as a testament that, even before the consolidation of the people of Israel, there were other Semitic communities that worshipped the God of Abraham, demonstrating the breadth and diversity of this faith in its early stages. In this context emerges the enigmatic people of the Shasu, one of the Semitic groups who, like the Kenites and Midianites, already worshipped the God of Abraham before the consolidation of Israel as a nation. The Shasu, Shaswa in ancient Egyptian, were nomadic shepherds of Semitic language who inhabited the southern Levant. Their presence is recorded from the late Bronze Age to the early Iron Age, corresponding to the Third Intermediate Period of Egypt. Living in tents and organized into clans led by tribal chiefs, these people traveled regions stretching from the Jezreel Valley to Ashkelon, passing through Transjordan, Sinai, and reaching Saudi Arabia. For the ancient Egyptians, who held historical resentments against the Hyksos, the Shasu were often seen as bandits and raiders, reinforcing a negative image. However, beyond the Egyptian perspective, the Shasu were a living example of the cultural and religious diversity of the Semitic peoples, preserving their nomadic identity while maintaining a primitive worship of the God of Abraham, which echoed in times long before the formation of Israel. The etymology of the name Shasu provides intriguing clues about the identity and habits of this people. It is believed that their origin lies in the Egyptian term Shaswa, which originally meant those who move on foot. Other scholars, such as Levi, Adams, and Muniz, suggest possible connections with the Egyptian word shases, meaning to wander, or with the Semitic triliteral root shasas, found in Hebrew, meaning to plunder or to steal. As such, the term Shasu was used by the Egyptians to designate certain groups and subgroups, possibly related to the Hyksos people. The homeland of the Shasu is also a subject of debate. Although their origin is often attributed to Transjordan, historical records indicate their presence in various regions such as Canaan, Syria, Egypt, Sinai, and Saudi Arabia. The first known mention of the Shasu dates back to the 16th century BCE in a list identifying peoples located in Transjordan. This rich and complex history highlights the Shasu as a key group for understanding the cultural and historical dynamics of the southern Levant in antiquity, illustrating how different communities interacted and were perceived by contemporary civilizations such as Egypt. Their nomadic activities, often associated with raids and plundering, also reveal aspects of survival and adaptation that defined their identity over the centuries. Exploring the trajectory of the Shasu takes us to the end of the Bronze Age, a period in which these Semitic nomads stood out not only for their pastoral lifestyle, but also for the impact they had on the civilizations of the ancient Near East. The first documented mention of the Shasu appears in the biographical inscription of Admiral Amose, located in El Kab. In this inscription, Ahmose describes how he captured Shasu prisoners during a punitive expedition to the north while serving Pharaoh Akheperenre Thutmose II. These accounts indicate that the Shasu were already present and active in strategic areas of the Levant at that time. According to scholar Givian, 1971, the emergence of the Shasu during this period may be attributed to the expulsion of the Hyksos around 1550 BCE. This theory suggests that the Shasu, like other nomadic groups, could have been among the peoples who reorganized after the collapse of Hyksos rule, seeking refuge and adapting to the new political and social dynamics of the southern Levant. Ahmose's account, along with this hypothesis, underscores the complexity of the Shasu's history, emphasizing their resilience and ability to adapt to a transitional period marked by conflict and population displacement. In the 39th year of Thutmose III's reign, during his 14th military campaign, the pharaoh encountered the Shasu before reaching Retjenu, an event that indicates the presence of this group in southern Canaan, particularly in the Negev region. This confrontation was recorded in Thutmose III's list of enemies, reinforcing the strategic importance and mobility of the Shasu during that period. The name Shasu appears again in another list of Egypt's enemies, inscribed on the bases of the columns of the Temple of Soleb, built by Amenhotep III. An intriguing detail found in this temple is the mention of a place called Ser in the land of Shasu, which many scholars associate with Petra in modern-day Jordan. This reference stands out due to the phonetic similarity between Sar and Seir, a region historically associated with the Edomites. The connection between the land of Shasu and Seir is particularly significant, as it suggests a geographical and cultural overlap between these groups. Furthermore, the mention of locations such as Petra highlights the extensive movement of the Shasu, who played an active role not only as nomads, but also as a dynamic element in the geopolitics of the southern Levant and the surrounding areas. In the 13th century BCE, inscriptions on columns commissioned by Seti the Parnes or Ramses II in Amara, Nubia, mention 6 distinct groups of Shasu, those of Sar, Rbn Smt, Warbr, Yhw, and Pisps. These records demonstrate the geographical extent and cultural diversity of the Shasu, who were recognized as significant adversaries of Egypt in various strategic regions. The presence of these groups in different areas emphasizes not only their relevance in the political and military landscape of the ancient Near East, but also their ability to adapt and move. Among the references, the mention of the Shasu group of Yhw stands out, as it suggests a possible connection to the worship of Yahweh. This connection is particularly intriguing, raising hypotheses about the religious origins and influences of the Shasu and their potential role in the spread or preservation of monotheistic practices. This association between the Shasu and YHWH opens new perspectives for the study of cultural and religious interactions in the region, indicating that the Shasu were not only military adversaries of Egypt, but also bearers of spiritual traditions that may have influenced the subsequent religious history of the Levant. The Shasu consolidated their control over the mountainous regions of Canaan, modern-day West Bank, and the lands of Transjordan, strengthening their influence to the point of disrupting trade routes linking northern Egypt for a considerable period. This growing threat prompted Ramses II and his son Merneptah to organize severe military campaigns to contain the Shasu. After the Egyptian withdrawal, the Canaanite city-states were left unprotected, becoming easy targets for both the Shasu and the feared Abiru, considered formidable enemies. Records from the 18th dynasty of Egypt document the expansion of Shasu influence in Canaan, evidenced by the large number of prisoners captured. During Amenhotep II's reign, almost half of the listed captives were from Kor or Karu. Later, the Shasu were identified as one of Egypt's main adversaries, alongside powers like Babylon and Tehenu, Libya. In the reign of Amenhotep III, the Shasu were associated with a region near the biblical city of Dothan, an area often used by Bedouins to feed and water their herds. Interestingly, The biblical narrative of Joseph in the Hebrew text also mentions nomads who brought their animals to a spring near Dothan, suggesting possible historical or cultural connections between these traditions. During the military campaign led by Pharaoh Seti I, widely known due to victory steles discovered at Tel Megiddo and Beit Shehan, the Shasu occupied a fertile and mountainous area between Sela and Pa-Canaan, probably near Gaza. Representations of this campaign depict the Shasu as a disorderly and rebellious people, whose tribal chiefs gathered in the hills of Kor, or Karu, to organize revolts. They are described as hostile to their neighbors and disrespectful of laws imposed by the Egyptian palace. In the same context, Seti the Rhine also faced the Abiru in the vicinity of Megiddo, highlighting the constant conflicts and instability that characterized the region. This turbulent period, marked by the actions of the Shasu, offers a rich and multifaceted perspective on power, culture, and religion in the ancient Near East, reflecting a scenario of continuous change and rivalries. The mention of the Shasu of YHW reveals an intriguing and unexpected detail. The name of the biblical god, Yahweh, is directly linked to this specific group of Shasu, who already venerated the supreme God even before the rise of the people of Israel. It is worth noting that, in addition to figures like Jethro, other Semitic peoples also served God long before the time of Moses. A notable example is Job, a central character in the book of Job, often identified as an Edomite descendant of Abraham and equally devoted to God. In the case of the Shasu of YHW, two Egyptian texts, one dating from the reign of Amenhotep III, 14th century BCE, and the other from the period of Ramses II, 13th century BCE, mentioned the land of the Shasu of YHW. According to researcher Michael Astor, the translation of these hieroglyphic records remarkably corresponds to the Hebrew tetragram Y, HWH, or Yahweh. This discovery is particularly significant as it precedes by more than 500 years the oldest known mention of the divine name recorded on the Mesha Stele. K. van der Toorn argues that, as early as the 14th century BCE, long before the worship of Yahweh was incorporated into Israel, groups such as the Edomites, Midianites, and Kenites already worshipped Yahweh as their God. This conclusion provides an innovative perspective on the origins and spread of Yahweh worship, suggesting that it was present in religious traditions before the formation of the people of Israel. In this context, the Shasu of YHW appear to have played a crucial role in a narrative that is still largely unknown. This panorama surprisingly reinforces the categorical assertions of biblical texts. Both the Midianites and Edomites were already serving the God of Israel before the formal establishment of the Israelite people. It is a fascinating idea, especially when considering figures like Job, often described as Edomite, and Jethro, a Midianite, both recognized for their faith in the supreme God. Although Edomites and Midianites also practiced paganism and polytheism, the worship of the God of Abraham was preserved among them, passing through generations and influencing the formation of Israel's religious traditions. Jethro, for example, played a prominent role as a priest in Midian, which suggests that he likely influenced many people to worship the Almighty God. This indicates the existence of a significant number of followers of Yahweh among the Midianites. Additionally, some scholars argue that the Israelites may have shared a common origin with the Shasu, considering that their brothers, the Edomites and Midianites, were included in this designation for certain Semitic groups. It is also worth noting that from the Egyptian perspective, the Semites were widely known as Hyksos, or Hyksos, in the ancient Egyptian language. Now, I want to know your opinion. Had you heard of the Shasu, this ancient people or alliance of Semitic peoples who worship the Almighty God? Leave your comments below and share your thoughts. May God bless you all, and see you soon. Did you know that the Bible is the best-selling book of all time, yet many people,
What if I told you that the story of Israel, the Jewish people, and their enduring presence on the world stage all began with a man from Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, who was promised he would become the father of a nation that would bless the entire world? This man, Abraham, walked away from everything he knew, guided only by a divine promise. And it's from this one man's obedience that the Jewish people emerge, not as a nation founded by kings or empires, but as a family bound by covenant, a covenant that would transform human history. Today, we're going back to the origin of the Jewish people. Along the way, we'll uncover how ancient banned books like Jubilees add rich layers to this story, revealing the depth of a faith that has defied nations and endured through millennia. By the end of this journey, we'll see how the covenant that began in Mesopotamia echoes through the Jewish identity today, grounding their purpose in a promise that has not faded. So, if you're ready to explore the roots of this remarkable people, stay with us. We'll uncover how the promise made to a single man has carried through generations, igniting a journey that connects ancient history to our modern world. In the ancient city of Ur of the Chaldeans, where towering ziggurats and idols filled the landscape, lived Abraham, then known as Abram. This was no place for the worship of a single unseen god. Ur, located in what is now Iraq, was steeped in polytheism, a place where gods were represented by statues, rituals, and symbols of power. Yet in the midst of this, Abram hears a voice unlike any he has ever known. "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you." Genesis 12:1-2. Imagine the faith it took to leave everything familiar, family, culture, the gods of his father, and set out to an unknown land. Abram doesn't have a roadmap or even a destination. He has a promise. That promise was that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars, and that, through him, all families of the earth would be blessed. Genesis 12:3. This moment marks the beginning of not only Abram's journey but of the Jewish people themselves, a lineage destined to change the world. But Abraham's journey was also a defiance of the norms of his time. According to the banned book of Jubilees, Abraham's break from idolatry wasn't just personal, it was a rebellion. In Jubilees, we learn that Abraham smashed his father's idols, symbolizing his rejection of the false gods that defined Mesopotamian culture. This act of rebellion against idolatry set Abraham apart, marking him as the first Hebrew, a word that can mean one who crosses over. Abraham crosses over from the world of false gods to follow the one true God, setting the foundation for a people who would always strive to be set apart. To seal his promise, God gives Abraham a sign, a ritual that would forever distinguish his descendants, circumcision. This act isn't just a physical marker. It's a declaration that Abraham's lineage would be a covenant people set apart to honor God. With this sign, Abraham's identity as the father of a nation is solidified. His obedience would echo through his descendants, beginning a lineage bound to God's promise and set apart as his people. Abraham's faith journey is carried forward by his son, Isaac. Unlike his father, Isaac lives a quieter life, a life rooted in the promise, but marked by his steadfastness rather than grand journeys. Through Isaac, we see the continuity of the covenant. God reaffirms his promise, saying to Isaac, "I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham, your father." Genesis 26:3. Isaac's role is critical as he bridges the past to the future, holding the promise and ensuring that it flows down to his children. But it is Jacob, Isaac's son, who takes the covenant to a new level. Jacob's story is one of struggle, transformation, and revelation. In a defining moment, Jacob wrestles with a mysterious figure through the night. Imagine the tension, the darkness, the exhaustion. As dawn breaks, the figure blesses Jacob with a new name, Israel, meaning one who struggles with God. Genesis 32:28. This name is not just for Jacob, it becomes the identity of his descendants. The Jewish people, as Israel, are a people who would wrestle, question, and confront, yet remain bound to God. Jacob's 12 sons become the 12 tribes of Israel, each son carrying the covenant forward in their own way. Each tribe possesses unique characteristics, strengths, and challenges, reflecting the diversity within unity that will become Israel's hallmark. And among these sons, Joseph stands out, a favored son who will play a crucial role in preserving the promise during one of the darkest chapters in the family's history. Joseph's story is one of incredible highs and devastating lows. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery and taken to Egypt, Joseph's life seems like it's unraveling. Yet, through dreams and a gift for interpreting them, he rises to a position of power second only to Pharaoh. When famine strikes, Joseph's wisdom not only saves Egypt, but also provides a sanctuary for his family. But what begins as a refuge becomes a place of bondage for Joseph's descendants. As generations pass, a new Pharaoh arises who does not remember Joseph. Fearing the growth and strength of the Israelites, Pharaoh enslaves them, subjecting them to bitter labor. The Book of Jubilees suggests that this period of oppression was a divine testing ground, shaping a people who would rely solely on God's promise. Imagine the suffering, the cries of an oppressed people who once knew favor in this land. This is the Jewish people's first collective trial, a period that would cement to their identity as a people who endure, a people who hold fast to hope amidst suffering. This story isn't just about physical bondage. It's about a people who will not be defined by their circumstances, but by their covenant with God. Then comes Moses, raised in Pharaoh's household, yet destined to lead his people out of bondage. From the burning bush to the plagues, God reveals himself in miraculous ways, culminating in the Exodus, the dramatic departure from Egypt. Picture the Red Sea parting, the Israelites stepping forward in faith, walls of water towering over them. This is not just an escape, it's a birth, a transformation from slaves into a nation set apart by God. At Mount Sinai, God gives them the law, binding them to a new covenant. This law, including the 10 Commandments, becomes the foundation of their identity, setting them apart as a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Exodus 19:6. It's a code that would not only define their moral and spiritual lives, but would shape their society, guiding their every action as they prepare to enter the land promised to their forefathers. In the wilderness, they face temptation, idolatry, and rebellion. Yet, with each trial, they learn the importance of obedience, the significance of being chosen. This period of wandering isn't just about finding a home. It's about forging a people who understand their purpose, a people who would carry the name of Israel, bearing both the blessings and burdens of the covenant. After years in the wilderness, the Israelites finally enter Canaan, led by Joshua. They conquer the land and settle, living under the guidance of judges, until they cry out for a king. God grants their request, and Saul becomes Israel's first king. But it is David, a shepherd with a heart for God, who unites the tribes and establishes Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Under Solomon, David's son, the first temple is built. This temple becomes the heartbeat of the Jewish nation, a place where God's presence dwells among them. It's a symbol of their covenant, a place where sacrifices and worship are central to their identity. However, after Solomon's death, the kingdom divides into Israel and Judah. This division weakens them, leading to their eventual downfall. The Assyrians conquer the northern kingdom, scattering its tribes, and Judah later falls to Babylon, resulting in the destruction of the temple and exile. Yet even in exile, the Jewish people refuse to forget their identity. They study the Torah, keep their traditions, and hold on to the promise made to Abraham. In Babylon, they preserve their covenant, ensuring that their faith endures even without a homeland. After 70 years, the exiles return to Jerusalem, rebuilding the temple and their community. This Second Temple period is a time of spiritual revival, yet it is also marked by foreign influence and struggle. Hellenistic culture threatens to assimilate them, but the Jewish people resist, fighting to preserve their identity in the face of cultural pressures. The banned Book of Enoch warns of the dangers of assimilation, urging them to hold fast to divine wisdom rather than human philosophies. In this period, they experience the Maccabean revolt, reclaiming the temple from Hellenistic control and rededicating it, a victory celebrated in the festival of Hanukkah. This resilience, this refusal to surrender their identity, cements their legacy as a people who would fight to remain true to their covenant, even when the world around them sought to reshape them. But when the Roman Empire takes control of Judea in 63 BCE, tensions rise again. The Jewish people face intense oppression, and factions emerge, each with a different vision for the future. The Sadducees, Pharisees, Zealots, and Essenes represent a nation divided, each interpreting the covenant in different ways, yet all yearning for freedom and redemption. In 70 CE, the Second Temple is destroyed, and the Jewish people are scattered across the Roman Empire in what would become the diaspora. This could have marked the end of the Jewish identity, but instead, it becomes a defining moment. Without a central place of worship, they turn to the Torah and the development of Rabbinic Judaism. Synagogues and study houses become the new spiritual centers, and the teachings of the Talmud preserve their faith, ethics, and law. Despite centuries of persecution, the Jewish people remain committed to their identity. Through exile and dispersion, they adapt, enduring hardships while holding fast to the covenant. Banned books like Enoch and Jubilees frame this journey as part of a cosmic plan, portraying their trials as tests of faith and endurance, preparing them for their unique role in God's kingdom. In 1948, after centuries of wandering, the Jewish people established the modern state of Israel, reviving the Hebrew language and returning to their ancestral homeland. Yet their journey continues, challenging the world to consider the meaning of faith, resilience, and divine purpose. The Jewish people's story, from Abraham to today, is a saga of unwavering faith, relentless endurance, and a covenant that time and trials could not break. It is a story that calls each of us to ask, what does it mean to be part of something greater, something eternal? And what is the power of a promise that can endure through millennia? If you've been moved by this journey, share your thoughts below and join Deep Bible Stories in exploring more of the Bible's mysteries and timeless truths. Hezekiah, kings of Judah. At that time, things were changing quickly, and the people faced many challenges. Isaiah grew up in the city of Jerusalem, a very important place for God's people. From a young age, he learned about God and the laws that he had given to the people. Isaiah observed everything around him, watching how people lived and treated each other. He noticed that people didn't always follow God's ways, and that concerned him greatly. When Isaiah was young, King Uzziah ruled Judah. In the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 26, verse 5, we find a description of that time. He sought God during the days of Zechariah, who instructed him in the fear of God. As long as he sought the Lord, God gave him success. Because of this, the country was doing well, people had food, the army was strong, and they were building many new things. Isaiah saw all this happening around him. He noticed how the cities were growing and how the soldiers were training to protect the country. It seemed like everything was improving and people were happy. But Isaiah also realized that not everything was perfect, and there were hidden problems beneath this prosperity. Even with all this wealth, Isaiah began to notice injustices. Some people were becoming very rich, while others were getting poorer. In chapter 5 of the book of Isaiah verse 8, we see how he would later speak about this. Woe to those who add house to house and join field to field, till no space is left, and you live alone in the land. Isaiah knew that this was not fair, and that God did not like this situation. Moreover, many people were starting to worship false gods, forgetting the true God, who had freed their ancestors from Egypt. Isaiah was saddened to see these things happening, and he knew that one day he would have to speak out against these issues. Meanwhile, the world around Judah was becoming dangerous. A country called Assyria was growing very strong and threatening to attack Israel, the neighboring kingdom to the north. People in Judah were worried, wondering if they would be next. Some wanted to make deals with other countries to protect themselves. Later in chapter 31, verse 1 of the book of Isaiah, he would speak about this problem. Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help, who rely on horses, who trust in the multitude of their chariots and in the great strength of their horsemen. Isaiah knew that the people should trust in God, not in alliances with other nations. He saw that people were looking for security in the wrong places, and this worried him deeply. One day, something incredible happened to Isaiah. In chapter 6 of the book of Isaiah verse 1, we read, In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Isaiah was in the temple, the special place where people worshipped God. Suddenly, he had an impressive vision. He saw God sitting on a high and majestic throne. It was something so grand that Isaiah could hardly believe what he was seeing. The temple seemed to be filled with God's presence. This vision would change Isaiah's life forever and mark the beginning of his mission as a prophet of God. In verses 2 and 3 of chapter 6, Isaiah describes what he saw around God's throne. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty, the whole earth is full of his glory. These seraphim were like angels, celestial beings who served God. Their voices were so powerful that they made the temple shake. Isaiah was both terrified and amazed at the same time. He had never seen anything so incredible in his life. The holiness and greatness of God were overwhelming, more than anything he could have imagined. But then, Isaiah realized something that troubled him deeply. He became aware that he was a sinful man, living among sinful people. How could he be in the presence of such a holy God? In verse 5 of chapter 6 we see how he reacted. Woe to me, I cried. I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. Isaiah thought he would be destroyed because of his sins. He knew he didn't deserve to be in God's presence. This moment of recognizing his own sins and the sins of the people was crucial to the mission God had for him. But God didn't want to destroy Isaiah. Instead, he wanted to purify him and use him for a special task. In verses 6 and 7 of chapter 6 we read, Then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs from the altar. With it, he touched my mouth and said, See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. This must have been painful, but it was an important symbol. God was showing Isaiah that he could cleanse even the deepest sins. At that moment Isaiah felt clean. His sins had been forgiven, and he was ready to serve God. Then something incredible happened. Isaiah heard God's voice speaking. In verse 8 of chapter 6, God asked, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" It was as if God was looking for someone to be his messenger, someone to speak to the people in his name. Isaiah didn't hesitate. He immediately responded, "Here am I, send me." He was ready to do whatever God asked. No matter how difficult the task would be, Isaiah wanted to serve the God he had just seen and who had forgiven him. He knew that his life would never be the same after this incredible experience. God then gave Isaiah a difficult task. In verses 9 and 10 of chapter 6, he said, "Go and tell this people, be ever hearing but never understanding, be ever seeing but never perceiving. Make the heart of this people calloused, make their ears dull, and close their eyes." This meant that Isaiah was to go and speak to the people, but God warned him that many would not listen to the message. The people would hear, but not understand. They would see, but not perceive. This seemed discouraging, but God wanted Isaiah to keep speaking, even when things got tough. It was a mission that would require a lot of courage and perseverance from Isaiah. Isaiah was concerned about this hard message and asked God how long it would last. In verse 11 of chapter 6, we read his question, "For how long, Lord?" He wanted to know how long the people would be blind and deaf to God's message. God's response showed that difficult times were ahead. He spoke of cities that would become empty and houses without inhabitants. This meant that a time of judgment and hardship was coming for the people. But even in this hard message, there was a glimmer of hope. In verse 13 of chapter 6, God gave Isaiah a message of hope to share. He said, "And though a tenth remains in the land, it will again be laid waste. But as the terebinth and oak leave stumps when they are cut down, so the holy seed will be the stump in the land." This meant that even though hard times were coming, God would not completely abandon his people. There would always be a stump, a faithful remnant, that would survive. God had a plan for his people, and that plan included a future of hope and restoration. From that day on, Isaiah began his journey as God's prophet. He would speak to kings, priests, and ordinary people. Sometimes, his message would be a warning of what would happen if the people did not return to God. Other times, he would bring words of comfort and hope. Isaiah knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to fulfill the mission God had given him. He had seen God's glory, experienced his forgiveness, and accepted his call. Now he was ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. Thus began Isaiah's ministry. The vision in the temple was just the beginning of a life dedicated to being God's voice to his people. Isaiah left the temple that day as a changed man, ready to make a difference in his world. He would confront powerful kings, speak out against injustice and idolatry, and bring messages of hope about a future savior. His life would never be the same, and through him, God would speak to his people for many years. After receiving his call in the temple, Isaiah began his work as God's prophet. His early years of ministry were filled with challenges. One of the first things Isaiah had to confront was idolatry in Judah. In chapter 2 verses 8 and 9, Isaiah speaks about this problem. "Their land is full of idols. They bow down to the work of their hands, to what their fingers have made. So people will be brought low and everyone humbled." Isaiah saw that many people were worshipping statues and false gods instead of the true God. This made him very sad and concerned. He knew this behavior would bring trouble for the people, so he started speaking out against it. Isaiah reminded the people that there was only one true God, the God who had freed their ancestors from Egypt and made a covenant with them. Another major problem Isaiah saw was social injustice. Many rich people were treating the poor and weak unfairly. In chapter 3 verses 14 and 15, Isaiah speaks harshly about this. The Lord enters into judgment against the elders and leaders of his people. It is you who have ruined my vineyard. The plunder from the poor is in your houses. What do you mean by crushing my people and grinding the faces of the poor? Declares the Lord Almighty. Isaiah was very angry when he saw the rich taking advantage of the poor. He said, this was wrong in God's eyes. The prophet called on the rich and powerful to treat others with justice and kindness. He reminded everyone that God cared deeply about how people treated one another, especially the most vulnerable. Isaiah didn't stop there. He also spoke a lot about the need for repentance. In chapter 1 verses 16 and 17 he says, wash and make yourselves clean. Take your evil deeds out of my sight. Stop doing wrong. Learn to do right. Seek justice. Defend the oppressed. Take up the cause of the fatherless. Plead the case of the widow. Isaiah wanted the people to change their ways and return to God. He said it wasn't enough just to go to the temple and make sacrifices. What God really wanted was for people to live justly and lovingly. Isaiah called the people to care for orphans and widows, who were the most vulnerable in society at that time. He taught that true worship of God was shown in how people treated one another. Along with his messages of repentance, Isaiah also spoke about the judgment that would come if the people didn't change their ways. In chapter 5, he uses a powerful image to talk about this. In verses 1 and 2 he says, I will sing for the one I love a song about his vineyard. My loved one had a vineyard on a fertile hillside. He dug it up and cleared it of stones and planted it with the choicest vines. He built a watchtower in it and cut out a winepress as well. Then he looked for a crop of good grapes, but it yielded only bad fruit. In this parable, God is the owner of the vineyard, and the people of Judah are the vineyard. Isaiah was saying that God had taken great care of his people, but they were not producing the fruit he expected. That is, they were not living the way God wanted them to. Isaiah continues this parable of the vineyard in chapter 5, verses 3 to 6, saying, Now, inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge between me and my vineyard. What more could have been done for it that I have not done? When I looked for good grapes, why did it only yield sour grapes? Now I will tell you what I am going to do to my vineyard. I will take away its hedge, and it will be destroyed. I will break down its wall, and it will be trampled. I will make it a wasteland, neither pruned nor cultivated, and briars and thorns will grow there. I will command the clouds not to rain on it. This was a strong message of judgment. Isaiah was warning that if the people did not change their ways, God would allow bad things to happen. He used the image of the vineyard to help people understand that their actions had consequences. While Isaiah was busy preaching to the people, he also started to get involved with the kings of Judah. One of the first kings Isaiah interacted with was Ahaz. In chapter 7, we see Isaiah advising the king during a very difficult time. Verses 1 and 2 tell us, When Ahaz, son of Jotham, and grandson of Uzziah, was king of Judah, King Rezin of Syria and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, marched up to fight against Jerusalem, but they could not overpower it. The house of David was told, Syria has allied itself with Ephraim. So the hearts of Ahaz and his people were shaken, as the trees of the forest are shaken by the wind. This was a very frightening situation. Two powerful kingdoms, Syria and Israel, also called Ephraim, had joined forces to attack Judah. King Ahaz and all the people were terrified. It was during this crisis that God sent Isaiah to speak to King Ahaz. In chapter 7 verse 3 we read, Then the Lord said to Isaiah, Go out you and your son Shear-Jashub, to meet Ahaz at the end of the aqueduct of the upper pool, on the road to the launderer's field. God wanted Isaiah to deliver a message of comfort and guidance to the king. In verses 4 and 5, Isaiah tells Ahaz, "Be careful, keep calm, and don't be afraid. Do not lose heart because of these two smoldering stubs of firewood, because of the fierce anger of Rezin and Syria, and of the son of Remaliah." Isaiah was telling the king not to fear these two kingdoms threatening Judah. He wanted Ahaz to trust in God rather than panic. But Ahaz struggled to trust Isaiah's message, so God did something remarkable. In chapter 7 verses 10 to 12 we read, "Again the Lord spoke to Ahaz. Ask the Lord your God for a sign, whether in the deepest depths or in the highest heights." But Ahaz said, "I will not ask, I will not put the Lord to the test." God was offering Ahaz the chance to ask for any sign he wanted to prove that the message was true. But Ahaz refused, pretending to be too religious to test God. In reality, he had already decided not to trust God and to seek help elsewhere. It was then that Isaiah gave one of the most famous prophecies in the entire Bible. In chapter 7 verse 14 he says, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel." This prophecy was about something that would happen many years later, the birth of Jesus. The name Emmanuel means God with us. Isaiah was saying that one day God would come to be with his people in a very special way. This message was for both Ahaz and God's people through the ages. Even though things looked bleak at that moment, God had a bigger plan. Years later, Isaiah continued his work as a prophet during the reign of another king named Hezekiah. Hezekiah was a king who tried to follow God, unlike his father, Ahaz. In chapter 38, we see an incredible story about how Isaiah helped Hezekiah. Verses 1 and 2 tell us, "In those days Hezekiah became ill and was at the point of death. The prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz, went to him and said, 'This is what the Lord says, put your house in order because you are going to die. You will not recover.' Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed to the Lord. Hezekiah was very sick, and Isaiah came with a hard message from God, telling the king that he was going to die. But the story doesn't end there. Hezekiah prayed fervently to God, asking for more time to live. And God heard his prayer. In chapter 38 verses 4 to 6 we read, "Then the word of the Lord came to Isaiah. Go and tell Hezekiah, this is what the Lord, the God of your father David says. I have heard your prayer and seen your tears. I will add 15 years to your life. And I will deliver you and this city from the hand of the king of Assyria. I will defend this city." God not only promised to heal Hezekiah, but also to protect the city of Jerusalem from the Assyrians, who were powerful enemies at that time. To confirm this promise, God performed an incredible miracle. In chapter 38 verses 7 and 8, Isaiah says, "This is the Lord's sign to you that the Lord will do what he has promised. I will make the shadow cast by the sun go back the 10 steps it has gone down on the stairway of Ahaz." And that's exactly what happened. The shadow on the sundial went back 10 steps. It was as if time had reversed a little, showing that God was giving Hezekiah more time to live. This miracle must have been very encouraging for both the king and the people, showing God's power and his willingness to answer prayers. During Hezekiah's reign, Isaiah also had to give advice on political matters. One of the biggest problems was the constant threat from Assyria, a very powerful empire that wanted to conquer Judah. Many people, including some of the king's advisors, wanted to make an alliance with Egypt to protect themselves from Assyria. But Isaiah knew this wasn't what God wanted. In chapter 30 verses 1 and 2 he says, "Woe to the obstinate children, declares the Lord, to those who carry out plans that are not mine, forming an alliance, but not by my spirit, heaping sin upon sin, who go down to Egypt without consulting me, who look for help to Pharaoh's protection, to Egypt's shade for refuge. Isaiah kept insisting that the people should trust in God, not in political alliances. In chapter 31 verse 1 he says, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help, who rely on horses, who trust in the multitude of their chariots, and in the great strength of their horsemen, but do not look to the Holy One of Israel, or seek help from the Lord." Isaiah was trying to show the king and the people that trusting in other nations would not save them. Only God could truly protect them. He wanted them to understand that their choices had consequences, and that seeking help in the wrong place would only bring more problems. Isaiah's advice wasn't always easy to follow. Sometimes it seemed safer to rely on armies and alliances than on a God they couldn't see. But Isaiah kept reminding the people that God had already done incredible things for them in the past, and that he would continue to take care of them if they trusted in him. In chapter 37, when Assyria actually attacked Judah, we see how important Isaiah's advice was. Hezekiah prayed to God for help instead of relying on human alliances, and God miraculously saved Jerusalem. Through all these events, the healing of Hezekiah, the miracle of the sun's shadow, and the protection from Assyria, Isaiah kept showing the people God's power and faithfulness. He wanted them to understand that God was in control of everything, even the great empires and the events of history. What if everything you thought you knew about the Bible was just the tip of the iceberg? Imagine if the stories that have shaped faith for thousands of years hold deeper, hidden truths, secrets so profound that they could change how you view history, humanity, and even your own beliefs. From the mysterious Garden of Eden to the apocalyptic visions of Armageddon, the Bible is filled with enigmatic passages that leave us with more questions than answers. In this series, we're going to dive into the Bible's most controversial and puzzling mysteries. You'll discover the untold truths about Adam and Eve, the shadowy figures like the Nephilim, and the cryptic prophecies that could hold the key to our future. Some of what you'll learn might challenge everything you've been taught, but keep watching, because by the end, you'll have a deeper understanding of these divine mysteries than you ever imagined. The story of Eden is one of the Bible's most foundational narratives, yet it is also one of its most puzzling. The forbidden fruit. Was it an actual fruit, or does it symbolize something more profound? Some scholars suggest that the fruit represents the knowledge of good and evil, a metaphor for the moral consciousness that came with humanity's disobedience. But why did God place the tree of knowledge in the garden, if he knew it would lead to the fall? This raises questions about free will and divine intention. Was the fall part of a larger divine plan, a necessary step in humanity's journey toward redemption? The serpent, often identified with Satan, introduces another layer of mystery. Was the serpent merely a fallen angel, or does it symbolize humanity's inner temptation and desire for autonomy? The expulsion of Adam and Eve from Eden, often seen as punishment, might also be viewed as the beginning of human history, a transition from innocence to a world where moral choices have real consequences. The story of Cain, the first murderer, presents another biblical mystery. After killing his brother Abel, Cain is marked by God. But what was this mark, and what was its purpose? While many view it as a curse, others argue that it was a sign of protection, preventing others from killing Cain in revenge. Why did God allow Cain to live and build a city, despite his crime? This decision suggests a deeper meaning behind Cain's descendants and their role in human history. Could the mark have been both a consequence of his actions and a symbol of God's mercy? The story of Cain invites us to explore the complex relationship between justice, punishment, and grace. The Nephilim, mentioned briefly in Genesis 6:1-4, are among the Bible's most enigmatic figures. Described as the offspring of the sons of God and daughters of men, they are often depicted as giants or mighty warriors. But who were they really? Some believe the Nephilim were the children of fallen angels who defied God, while others see them as a remnant of ancient myths and legends. The decision to wipe out the Nephilim with the Great Flood raises questions about their nature and influence. Did any of them survive? And if so, how do they connect to later biblical figures like Goliath? The mystery of the Nephilim touches on themes of divine justice, the boundaries between the human and the divine, and the persistence of evil in the world. Melchizedek is a mysterious figure who appears in Genesis 14:18-20 as the king of Salem and priest of the Most High God. He blesses Abraham and receives tithes from him, but little else is known about him. Who was Melchizedek? Some believe he was a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ, while others see him as a symbol of a priesthood that predates the Levitical line. Melchizedek's priesthood is considered eternal, a concept that is later connected to Jesus in the book of Hebrews. What is the significance of this eternal priesthood, and how does it relate to the new covenant established by Christ? The mystery of Melchizedek challenges our understanding of divine authority and the continuity between the Old and New Testaments. The Exodus, the story of the Israelites' escape from Egypt, is one of the most significant events in the Bible. But did it really happen as described? Archaeological evidence for the Exodus is scarce, leading some to question its historical accuracy. Yet, the absence of evidence does not necessarily mean it didn't occur. Perhaps the event was much smaller or different in nature than traditionally believed. Who were the pharaohs of the Exodus? Some theories suggest they could have been black rulers of Egypt, reflecting the diversity of ancient Egyptian civilization. The 10 plagues that afflicted Egypt may have had widespread effects, influencing not just Egypt, but surrounding regions as well. The Exodus is not just a historical mystery. It also connects to themes of freedom, faith, and divine intervention. Is there a connection between the Exodus and other ancient migrations or natural disasters? The story invites us to explore the intersection of history, mythology, and theology. The Ark of the Covenant is one of the Bible's most sacred and mysterious objects. Containing the 10 Commandments, it was a powerful symbol of God's presence among the Israelites. But where is the Ark now? Some believe it was lost or destroyed, while others claim it is hidden in Ethiopia, guarded by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. The Ark's supernatural properties are a subject of fascination. Was it a literal manifestation of divine power, or a symbol of the covenant between God and his people? Its disappearance from the Bible's narrative is itself a mystery. What could this signify about the nature of God's relationship with humanity? The Ark of the Covenant remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the Bible, inviting speculation about its fate and its role in both past and future events. The Antichrist is a figure of great intrigue and fear, central to the end-time prophecies in the book of Revelation. But who or what is the Antichrist? Is this figure a single individual, a system of evil, or a symbol of all that opposes God? The number 666, associated with the beast, has been interpreted in various ways, but what does it truly signify? Could the beast of Revelation be linked to historical figures or future leaders? And how does the Antichrist fit into the larger narrative of the end times? The mystery of the Antichrist challenges us to consider the nature of evil, the dynamics of power, and the ultimate victory of good over darkness. Armageddon, the prophesied final battle between good and evil, is one of the Bible's most dramatic and terrifying concepts. But what will it look like? Is Armageddon a literal battle, a spiritual conflict, or a metaphor for the end of the world? The location of the final battle, often associated with the Valley of Megiddo, and the forces involved, are subjects of intense speculation. Could Armageddon be a recurring event throughout history, rather than a single apocalyptic moment? How does the concept of Armageddon influence modern views on war, peace, and the future? The mystery of Armageddon invites us to explore the ultimate resolution of the conflict between good and evil, and what it means for humanity's destiny.
Alright, let's dive deep into one of the most controversial and hidden secrets of the Bible, a story that has been whispered through the ages but rarely brought to light: the true nature of the serpent's seduction in the Garden of Eden. Imagine this: the Garden of Eden, a place of unimaginable beauty and tranquility. Adam and Eve live in perfect harmony with nature, their every need provided by the Creator. Yet, amidst this paradise, lurks a figure shrouded in mystery and danger: the serpent. Now, we are not talking about a mere snake slithering around. No, this serpent is a manifestation of Lucifer himself, the fallen angel, the master of deceit. The traditional narrative tells us that the serpent tempted Eve to eat the forbidden fruit, leading to the fall of mankind. But what if there was more to this story? What if the serpent's temptation was far more insidious, far more personal? Hebrew Bible scholars and apocryphal texts hint at a deeper, more intimate interaction. The serpent, with his beguiling charm and otherworldly knowledge, approaches Eve not just with a piece of fruit, but with a proposition. He promises her wisdom, power, and a deeper understanding of the divine. His words are like honey, sweet and irresistible. Eve, innocent and curious, is drawn to his allure. This isn't just about a piece of fruit. This is about a forbidden union, a crossing of boundaries that should never have been crossed. The serpent, in his true form as Lucifer, seduces Eve, and their union brings forth a new kind of knowledge, a knowledge that is both enlightening and damning. This act of seduction, this forbidden encounter, is the real original sin, a sin that brings forth a lineage tainted by its very inception. Apocryphal texts and Kabbalistic literature delve into this forbidden union, suggesting that Cain, the firstborn of Eve, is not the son of Adam, but the offspring of Lucifer himself. This revelation shakes the very foundation of our understanding of good and evil. Cain, born from this unholy union, carries within him the mark of his father, a mark that will define his destiny and the destinies of his descendants. So, here's the deal. The traditional narrative tells us that Cain and Abel were the sons of Adam and Eve, right? But what if I told you that this isn't the whole truth? What if Cain's true father wasn't Adam at all, but Lucifer? Alright, before you hit that comment section, let's break this down. We already know from the previous discussion that the serpent, a manifestation of Lucifer, had a forbidden encounter with Eve in the Garden of Eden. This union, shrouded in secrecy and taboo, resulted in the birth of Cain. This isn't just wild speculation. There's compelling evidence in ancient texts and traditions that support this claim. Let's start with the apocryphal texts, those books that didn't make it into the canonical Bible but still hold immense value and insight. In some of these texts, there are hints and outright statements suggesting that Cain was the offspring of a union between Eve and a being of great power and darkness. This being, as we now understand, is Lucifer. But why does this matter? Why is it so crucial to understand Cain's true parentage? Because it fundamentally changes the story of humanity. If Cain is indeed the son of Lucifer, then his actions, his curse, and his descendants carry an entirely different weight. Cain's murder of Abel isn't just a crime of passion, it's the manifestation of a darker, more profound struggle between good and evil. Kabbalistic literature adds even more depth to this theory. According to these mystical texts, the union between Eve and Lucifer was part of a cosmic plan, a struggle between light and darkness that plays out on the human stage. Cain, born from this union, is marked not just with a curse, but with the legacy of his father. This mark signifies his role in the ongoing battle between divine order and chaotic rebellion. Imagine the implications of this revelation. Cain, the first murderer, isn't just a wayward son, but the progeny of Lucifer himself. This makes his actions almost inevitable, a result of the dark legacy he carries. His descendants, too, are marked by this origin, their fates intertwined with the ancient struggle that began in the Garden of Eden. Now, let's talk about the Gnostic texts. These writings often present alternative views on biblical stories, and they have a lot to say about Cain. In Gnostic tradition, Cain is seen as a figure of both darkness and misunderstood potential. His lineage is not just cursed, but also carries the potential for great knowledge and power, attributes inherited from his father, Lucifer. Alright, let's get into the heart of one of the most intriguing and controversial ideas in the story of Cain and Abel, the concept of dual paternity, where Eve bore twins with different fathers. This isn't your run-of-the-mill biblical interpretation. This is a theory that takes us deep into the mysteries and hidden truths of ancient texts. Imagine the Garden of Eden, a place of absolute purity and innocence, suddenly becoming the setting for an unprecedented act of dual parenthood. Eve, in a moment that defies conventional understanding, conceives twins, Cain and Abel, from two different fathers. This isn't just about eating a forbidden fruit. This is about a forbidden union that brings forth two children with vastly different destinies. On one side, we have Abel, the son of Adam, representing the traditional lineage of humanity, marked by a connection to the divine and a sense of righteousness. Abel's existence is straightforward. He is the product of a lawful union, blessed by the Creator. On the other side, we have Cain, whose origins are shrouded in darkness and controversy. According to ancient texts and mystical traditions, Cain's father is not Adam, but Lucifer. This forbidden union between Eve and the fallen angel results in a child born with a dual nature, part human, part demonic. Cain's very existence is a living testament to this cosmic breach. Kabbalistic and Gnostic writings provide us with fascinating insights into this duality. These texts suggest that Eve's encounter with Lucifer was not just a simple seduction, but a profound spiritual event. Through this union, Eve gains forbidden knowledge and gives birth to a son who embodies the conflict between good and evil. Think about it, two brothers, born at the same time, sharing the same mother, but with fathers who are diametrically opposed in nature. This sets the stage for an inevitable clash. Cain, carrying the mark of his father Lucifer, struggles with a darkness that drives him to jealousy and rage. Abel, embodying purity and divine favor, becomes the innocent victim of his brother's inner turmoil. This dual paternity theory isn't just a wild speculation. It's supported by various ancient texts and interpretations that have been passed down through the ages. In some Gnostic traditions, this idea of dual parenthood is used to explain the profound differences between Cain and Abel. It's not just a story of sibling rivalry, it's a cosmic battle between the forces of light and darkness, played out in the earliest chapters of human history. Alright, let's get right into one of the most intriguing and controversial aspects of Cain's story, the curse placed upon him after he murders his brother Abel. We're going to delve into what the apocryphal texts and occult traditions have to say about this curse. So, picture this: Cain, driven by jealousy and rage, commits the first murder in human history, killing his brother Abel. This act is monumental, not just because it's the first of its kind, but because of the profound consequences that follow. According to the traditional biblical narrative, God punishes Cain by cursing him to be a wanderer on the earth, marked so that no one would kill him. But there's so much more to this story when you dig into the apocryphal texts and occult traditions. These sources reveal that Cain's curse is not just about wandering aimlessly. It's a mark of his true nature and heritage. In the apocryphal texts, specifically the Book of Jubilees and other ancient writings, the curse of Cain is described in vivid detail. Cain is not only marked but also burdened with a profound sense of guilt and isolation. He is forever separated from the presence of God, a perpetual outsider, wandering in a world that is now hostile to him. This mark is a visible sign of his transgression and his demonic lineage. It's a constant reminder of the forbidden union that brought him into existence. Now, let's turn to the occult traditions. In these mystical and esoteric teachings, the mark of Cain is seen as a symbol of great power and great burden. Cain is often depicted as a figure of immense potential, but also one cursed with a dark destiny. The mark is not just a physical sign, but a spiritual one, indicating his connection to Lucifer. This connection grants him knowledge and abilities beyond those of ordinary humans, but it also comes with a price: eternal conflict and suffering. Occult traditions further teach that Cain's curse is intertwined with his role as a progenitor of a lineage marked by rebellion and spiritual strife. His descendants are said to inherit his mark, carrying within them the same duality of great potential and great peril. These traditions suggest that the mark of Cain is a kind of spiritual inheritance, a sign of both his extraordinary abilities and his doomed fate. In some esoteric circles, the mark of Cain is even seen as a badge of honor, a symbol of defiance against divine authority. This perspective views Cain as a tragic hero, a figure who dared to challenge the established order and paid the ultimate price. His curse, therefore, is both a punishment and a testament to his unique role in the cosmic drama. These interpretations are bold, challenging, and deeply unsettling. They force us to reconsider the simplistic view of Cain as merely a villain. Instead, we see him as a complex figure, marked by his origins and his actions, caught in a struggle that transcends his personal story and touches on the very nature of good and evil. Alright, let's dive into another layer of the Gnostic perspectives on Eve's encounter with the serpent and how it reshapes our understanding of Cain's origins. So, Gnosticism, for those who might not know, is a collection of ancient religious ideas and systems that emerged in the early centuries of Christianity. Gnostics had some pretty controversial views, especially when it came to the story of creation and the figures involved. In Gnostic texts, the serpent in the Garden of Eden isn't merely a deceiver. Instead, it's often seen as a liberator, a bringer of knowledge. Here's where it gets wild. Gnostic teachings propose that the serpent is a representation of the demiurge, a lesser god who created the material world. This demiurge is often portrayed as an arrogant and flawed entity who traps human souls in the material world. The serpent, however, is a manifestation of a higher, more benevolent power that seeks to enlighten humanity and free them from the demiurge's control. Now, let's bring Eve into the picture. According to Gnostic texts like the Apocryphon of John and the Hypostasis of the Archons, Eve's encounter with the serpent is not an act of disobedience, but a moment of awakening. The serpent offers Eve the fruit of knowledge, and by accepting it, Eve gains an understanding of the divine truths that the demiurge tried to keep hidden. But here's the kicker: this knowledge isn't just intellectual, it's also deeply spiritual and, yes, even sexual. The Gnostics suggest that Eve's interaction with the serpent was a profound spiritual union, one that imparted her with divine wisdom and power. This union is seen as an essential act of rebellion against the oppressive rule of the demiurge, marking the beginning of a spiritual awakening for humanity. And where does Cain fit into all of this? According to these Gnostic interpretations, Cain is the progeny of this enlightened union. He is not just a physical offspring, but a spiritual being, embodying the wisdom and power of the higher realms. This perspective transforms Cain from a mere biblical villain into a complex figure caught in the cosmic struggle between light and darkness. The Gnostics believed that Cain's role was misunderstood and that his actions were driven by a deeper, more spiritual conflict. His murder of Abel, they suggest, wasn't just a simple act of jealousy, but a manifestation of the eternal struggle between the forces of enlightenment and the forces of ignorance and control represented by Abel. This view is supported by various Gnostic texts that paint Cain as a bearer of secret knowledge, a figure whose very existence challenges the status quo. The mark of Cain, in this light, is not just a curse, but also a symbol of his unique role in the cosmic order. It's a sign of his spiritual lineage and his connection to the higher truths that the Gnostics revered. In Kabbalistic thought, every action and event in the Torah has a deeper, hidden meaning. Cain's birth is seen as a result of a profound spiritual event. According to these mystical teachings, Eve's encounter with the serpent wasn't just a physical temptation, it was a metaphysical union. The serpent, representing the darker aspects of the divine, imparted a spark of forbidden knowledge to Eve, resulting in the birth of Cain. This spark is both a blessing and a curse, imbuing Cain with extraordinary potential but also binding him to a dark destiny. Kabbalistic texts such as the Zohar delve into this dual nature of Cain. They suggest that Cain embodies the tension between the divine and the demonic, the sacred and the profane. He is a figure of immense spiritual complexity, marked by his unique origin. The Zohar explains that Cain's soul is derived from a higher spiritual realm but is tainted by the impurity of his conception. This duality is symbolized by the mark placed upon Cain. According to Kabbalistic interpretation, this mark is not just a physical sign but a metaphysical symbol of his role in the cosmic order. It signifies his connection to both the highest and lowest aspects of the divine. The mark is a constant reminder of his potential for greatness and his inherent struggle with his darker nature. Furthermore, Kabbalistic teachings often explore the idea of tikkun, or spiritual repair. Cain's life and actions are seen as part of a larger divine plan for rectification and balance. His existence is necessary to address the imbalance created by the original sin and the subsequent fall of humanity. In this view, Cain's journey is one of seeking redemption, struggling to overcome his inherent darkness and fulfill his potential for spiritual enlightenment. One of the most intriguing aspects of Kabbalistic interpretation is the idea that Cain's descendants inherit his spiritual struggle. They carry within them the same potential for both greatness and downfall. This lineage is seen as crucial in the ongoing cosmic drama, playing a pivotal role in the ultimate redemption of humanity. The Zohar even suggests that some of the greatest sages and mystics in history are descendants of Cain, working to transform his cursed legacy into a source of divine light. Alright, let's wrap up our exploration with a deep dive into the occult revelations about the hidden history of Lucifer and Eve. This isn't just another biblical story, this is about uncovering secrets that have been kept from us for centuries. We're talking forbidden knowledge, hidden histories, and bold truths that challenge everything we thought we knew. So, let's get right into it. Occult traditions have a lot to say about the relationship between Lucifer and Eve, and it's nothing short of mind-blowing. These teachings go beyond the surface-level interpretations and delve into the profound spiritual and metaphysical implications of their union. According to various occult texts, the encounter between Lucifer and Eve in the Garden of Eden was far more than just a simple act of temptation. It was an intimate and transformative event. Lucifer, often depicted as a fallen angel and the bringer of light, approached Eve not just to deceive her, but to initiate her into deeper, hidden knowledge. This act was seen as a cosmic rebellion against the divine order established by the Creator. In many occult traditions, Lucifer is viewed as a Promethean figure, a bringer of enlightenment who defies the oppressive rule of a tyrannical god. His union with Eve is seen as a deliberate act to awaken humanity from its imposed ignorance. By sharing his knowledge and power with Eve, Lucifer aimed to elevate human consciousness and free humanity from the constraints of the material world. This forbidden union resulted in the birth of Cain, who is often described in these texts as a being of great potential and significant spiritual power. Cain's lineage, according to occult beliefs, carries the duality of his origins, both divine and demonic. This duality is seen as essential for the ongoing struggle between light and darkness, a theme that resonates throughout many esoteric traditions. One of the most compelling aspects of these occult teachings is the idea that Lucifer's actions were not purely malevolent. Instead, they are portrayed as a necessary step in the evolution of human consciousness. By defying the Creator and imparting knowledge to Eve, Lucifer set in motion a series of events that would ultimately lead to the possibility of human enlightenment and spiritual growth. Occult traditions often emphasize that this hidden history has been suppressed and demonized by mainstream religious teachings. The true nature of Lucifer and Eve's relationship is said to be one of mutual respect and shared purpose, aimed at liberating humanity from ignorance and spiritual stagnation. These teachings challenge us to reconsider the nature of good and evil, suggesting that the true path to enlightenment involves embracing the complexities and dualities of existence. It's a bold and daring perspective that redefines the roles of the key figures in the Garden of Eden and invites us to look beyond the conventional narratives. So, there you have it, a glimpse into the hidden history of Lucifer and Eve according to occult traditions. This story isn't just about defiance and rebellion, it's about the profound and often controversial journey towards spiritual enlightenment and liberation. It's a narrative that invites us to question, explore, and ultimately seek the deeper truths that lie beneath the surface. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden secrets of our ancient past, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means the world to me, and it helps us continue to explore these fascinating topics. God bless us all, and see you in the next video.
Death is the one thing every person born into this world must face. The Bible reminds us in Romans 5:12 that death entered the world because of sin, and since then it has come to all people. It's a reality we cannot escape. Our time will come one day. But did you know there were 3 men who defied this principle? 3 men who never tasted death and were taken away in the most extraordinary ways. Who are these men? What made them so special that they bypassed the grave? Get ready to explore this incredible mystery. Join us as we uncover the hidden truths behind their remarkable stories and discover what made them different. You won't want to miss this fascinating journey into the miraculous. Stay tuned, because what we're about to share might just change how you see life and death forever. Number 1. Enoch. Enoch, a man who never tasted death, stands as one of the most remarkable figures in the Bible. He wasn't a descendant of Cain or Abel, but came through Adam and Eve's 3rd son. From this family line came many great names, including his great-grandson Noah, who would later play a key role in God's plan. Before the Great Flood, in a time filled with moral decay and sin, the world was becoming increasingly wicked. People's thoughts and actions were continuously evil, and humanity strayed far from its Creator. Yet, in the midst of this darkness, one man stood as a beacon of righteousness: Enoch. He was the 7th generation from Adam, a direct descendant through the line of Seth, and the father of Methuselah, the oldest man in the Bible who lived 969 years. Enoch's lineage connected him directly to the patriarchal line leading to Noah, an important figure in God's plan for human redemption through the flood. Enoch was not an ordinary man. His life marked a significant deviation from the sinful tendencies of his contemporaries. While others around him were falling deeper into sin, Enoch chose a different path. He chose to walk with God. This decision set him apart in a world consumed by corruption and decay. It highlighted Enoch's incredible faith, dedication, and resolve to live righteously in a time when sin was the norm. Genesis 5:22-24 provides us with an extraordinary account of Enoch's life. Enoch walked with God, then he was no more, for God took him. Walking with God implies a continuous, intimate fellowship with the Creator. This wasn't just about following rules or adhering to rituals. For Enoch, it was a deep, personal relationship with God. It involved daily conversations, listening to God's guidance, and aligning his actions with God's will. This level of intimacy was unique and extraordinary. Enoch's life became a continuous journey of faith and devotion, where he prioritized God above all else. In those early days of humanity, lifespans were astonishingly long, centuries in fact, before God set the 120-year limit mentioned in Genesis 6:3. Yet, even among these long-lived individuals, Enoch's life was extraordinary. At 65, he became a father to Methuselah, but his true journey of faith began from that point onward, continuing for 365 years. His faith wasn't casual or distant. It was active, alive, and deeply pleasing to God. Enoch lived in complete harmony with God's will, a life of unwavering trust and obedience. The brevity of Enoch's account in Genesis has led to much speculation and elaboration in other ancient texts. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish religious work, expands on his story, portraying him as a scribe of righteousness and a mediator between God and humanity. It tells of Enoch's encounters with divine beings and his journeys through heavenly realms. These experiences reveal Enoch's exceptional spiritual stature and the divine mysteries he was privy to. He is described as one who saw visions of the future, traveled through different heavens, and received knowledge about God's plan for humanity. Jude 1:14-15 references Enoch as a prophet who spoke of a future day when the Lord would return with countless holy ones to bring judgment upon the sinful world. His words stand as both a warning and a promise, calling out sin and pointing toward hope for the faithful. This prophetic role further highlights Enoch's significance as a man of deep spiritual insight and courage. The phrase "God took him" is no metaphor when it comes to Enoch. Hebrews 11:5-6 emphasizes this truth. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Enoch's translation into heaven was an unparalleled act of divine favor, a reward for his faith and obedience. Luke includes Enoch in the genealogy of Jesus in Luke 3:37, tracing his lineage all the way back to Adam. This connection underscores Enoch's role in God's overarching plan for redemption. His great-grandson Noah would later follow his example of faith and righteousness, choosing to obey God in a world full of wickedness. Through Noah, the seeds of faith planted by Enoch bore fruit, ensuring the survival of humanity and the continuation of God's promises. Enoch's life and legacy are a testament to the rewards of walking closely with God. He didn't just walk with God in a physical sense. His faith defined every step he took. His story challenges us to reflect on our own lives and consider the depth of our relationship with God. Enoch shows us that it's possible to live a life that pleases God, even in a world full of sin and distractions. Imagine living in such close fellowship with God that he decides to take you straight to heaven without experiencing death. That is the extraordinary nature of Enoch's story. His unwavering faith and devotion earned him an unprecedented place in biblical history, a man who never tasted death but was taken directly into God's presence. Enoch's story is not just about his escape from death, it's about the kind of life that led to such an extraordinary event. His journey encourages us to seek a deeper, more meaningful connection with God, one that transforms our lives and inspires those around us. By walking with God as Enoch did, we too can live lives of purpose, faith, and divine favor. Number 2, Elijah. Elijah was a prophet in Israel during a time of great moral and spiritual decline. King Ahab, one of Israel's most corrupt monarchs, and his wife Queen Jezebel led the nation into idol worship, forsaking the God of Israel. Jezebel's devotion to the pagan god Baal led many Israelites astray, and the entire nation turned away from their faith. In this dark time, Elijah, a righteous man of God, was called to confront the wickedness of Israel. Boldly, he proclaimed to King Ahab that there would be no rain or dew in the land unless Elijah commanded it, as a divine judgment for the nation's idolatry and injustice. For 3.5 years, the heavens were closed, and a severe drought plagued the land. During this time, God provided for Elijah in miraculous ways. He hid by a brook where ravens brought him food, and when the brook dried up, God led him to the city of Zarephath. There, Elijah met a widow preparing to die of famine with her son. Trusting in God's provision, Elijah asked her to bake him a loaf of bread first, assuring her that her flour and oil would never run out. She obeyed, and her supplies remained inexhaustible throughout the drought. Elijah's faith was further tested when he confronted the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. He called for a challenge to prove the true God. The prophets of Baal cried out to their God, but nothing happened. Then Elijah rebuilt the altar to the Lord, drenched his sacrifice with water, and prayed to God. Fire descended from heaven, consuming the sacrifice, the altar, and even the water, showing that the Lord alone is God. After this victory, Elijah announced the end of the drought. He prayed earnestly, and soon a small cloud appeared, signaling the coming rain. God sent a mighty downpour, bringing relief to the land. Despite these powerful miracles, Elijah faced great opposition. Queen Jezebel sought to take his life, forcing him to flee into the wilderness. Exhausted, he prayed for death, but God sent an angel to provide food and water, restoring his strength. Elijah then traveled to Mount Horeb, where he had a profound encounter with God. In a quiet whisper, God spoke to Elijah, renewing his purpose and giving him instructions for the future. Elijah's time on earth was coming to an end, and God revealed this to him. Elijah passed on his prophetic mantle to Elisha, a young man chosen by God to succeed him. The two traveled together, eventually reaching the Jordan River. Elijah struck the water with his mantle, parting the river so they could cross on dry ground. As they walked, a chariot of fire, drawn by fiery horses, appeared, and Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha, witnessing this miraculous event, picked up Elijah's mantle and returned to the river, parting the waters once again, demonstrating that God's Spirit had now passed to him. Elijah's departure was a powerful sign of God's ongoing work in Israel. Though Elijah did not experience death in the traditional sense, his legacy of faith, obedience, and boldness in the face of evil continued to inspire generations. His story marked a pivotal moment in Israel's history and paved the way for Elisha's ministry. Number 3. Melchizedek. Melchizedek first appears in Genesis 14, during a time of war among ancient city-states in Canaan and Mesopotamia. Abraham's nephew Lot and his family were captured during these conflicts. When Abraham learned of this, he took 318 of his trained servants and pursued the captors, successfully rescuing Lot and his household. After Abraham's victorious return, Melchizedek suddenly appears in the narrative. Genesis 14:18-20 records that Melchizedek, described as the king of Salem and priest of God Most High, brought out bread and wine and blessed Abraham. He said, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, maker of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." In response, Abraham gave Melchizedek a tithe, a tenth of all he had. The title King of Salem links Melchizedek to the city that would later be called Jerusalem. The word Salem means peace in Hebrew, making Melchizedek the King of Peace. His name also means King of Righteousness, further emphasizing his unique role. Melchizedek's story is referenced again in Psalm 110:4, where David, speaking prophetically about the Messiah, says, "The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek." This verse connects Melchizedek's priesthood to that of Jesus Christ, who is described as the eternal high priest in the New Testament. In Hebrews 6:19-20 and Hebrews 7, the author explains that Jesus, after his resurrection, holds the position of high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Unlike the Levitical priesthood, which was temporary and based on lineage, Melchizedek's priesthood, and thus Jesus' priesthood, is eternal and based on divine authority. One of the most puzzling aspects of Melchizedek is his lack of genealogy. Hebrews 7:3 states, "Melchizedek had no father or mother, and no record of his ancestors. He was never born, and he never died, but his life is like that of the Son of God, a priest forever." This has led some to believe that Melchizedek was not an ordinary human. Some scholars suggest that Melchizedek was a historical figure, a real king-priest whose story was preserved to teach about the eternal priesthood. Others believe he may have been a Christophany, an appearance of Christ in the Old Testament. They argue that his eternal qualities, his role as king of peace and righteousness, and his lack of genealogy point to a divine nature. However, others interpret Hebrews 7:3 figuratively, suggesting that Melchizedek is merely a type or symbol of Christ, rather than Christ himself. They note that while Melchizedek appears abruptly and mysteriously in Genesis, the text does not explicitly state that he is divine. Regardless of his exact identity, Melchizedek serves as a powerful symbol of Christ's eternal priesthood and the unchanging nature of God's covenant with his people. His story invites us to reflect on the nature of priesthood and kingship. Unlike the Levitical priests, whose authority came through lineage, Melchizedek's priesthood was based on his relationship with God and his spiritual authority. This distinction is important for understanding Jesus' role as our eternal high priest. Jesus, like Melchizedek, is not a priest because of human lineage, but because of his divine nature. He offers eternal intercession and mediation between God and humanity, making him the ultimate fulfillment of Melchizedek's priesthood. As we conclude, let us have this prayer. Heavenly Father, we stand in awe of your power and grace, as shown in the lives of Enoch, Melchizedek, and Elijah, men who walked so closely with you that they never faced death as we know it. Lord, teach us to live with faith like Enoch, pursuing righteousness and pleasing you in all we do. Help us to seek you wholeheartedly, just as Melchizedek represented your eternal priesthood. And like Elijah, may we have unwavering courage and trust in your plans, knowing you will always be with us. Draw us closer to you each day so that our lives may reflect your glory. Let our faith and devotion bring us into your presence now and forevermore. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. If this narration has blessed and inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and comment below to let others experience the same encouragement. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an opportunity to grow deeper in faith. Together, let's spread the light of God's word to the world.
While many know the famous expression, "Nothing is certain except death and taxes," it turns out that the Bible does, in fact, mention some individuals that never experienced death. While many may initially think of Jesus as an example, it is a central belief in Christianity, as per the Gospels, that Jesus did, indeed, die before his resurrection from the dead. However, the Bible actually gives us the names of 3 individuals that never saw death. The third person is the subject of one of the biggest mysteries in the Bible. Number 1. Enoch, the first man in the Bible to be said to have never died, was one of Adam's descendants, not from Cain or from Abel, but from Adam and Eve's third son. He was also Noah's great-grandfather and bore lineage to other notable figures in the Bible. Now, in an era where God had not yet set a 120-year life limit as mentioned in Genesis 6:3, many individuals lived well beyond a century. However, Enoch defied expectations and became a father at 65 and ultimately lived to the ripe age of 365. During this tumultuous period before the Great Flood, most people didn't walk faithfully with God. They went their own way, down the crooked path of sin. However, Enoch stood out by walking faithfully with God and developing a profound relationship with him. In Genesis 5:22 and 24, we read, "Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, for God took him." This passage indicates Enoch's close bond with God and the extraordinary fact that God chose to bring him to heaven without him experiencing physical death. Luke mentions Enoch in his list of Jesus' ancestors in Luke 3:37, going all the way back to Adam. Hebrews 11 also mentions Enoch in a list of the ancient Israelite ancestors who are commended for their great faith. Hebrews 11:5-6 reads, "For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." Throughout the Bible, the phrase "God took him" is repeatedly used when referring to Enoch. The book of Hebrews clarifies that this phrase isn't just symbolic, it signifies that Enoch didn't experience death as we typically do. Hebrews 11:5-6 reinforces this, stating, "By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God." Enoch was also blessed with the gift of prophecy as he prophesied the coming of Jesus Christ. This instance is depicted in Jude 1:14-15, which reads, "See, the Lord is coming with thousands upon thousands of his holy ones to judge everyone, and to convict all of them of all the ungodly acts they have committed in their ungodliness, and of all the defiant words ungodly sinners have spoken against him." But Enoch's legacy didn't end with him. His great-grandson Noah also walked faithfully with God. Due to his righteousness, only Noah and his family were spared during the catastrophic Great Flood. Enoch's life is a powerful testament to faith, obedience, and truthfulness, which pleased God to such an extent that he chose to take Enoch from this earthly realm. Just imagine that. Number 2. Elijah, the most popular figure in the Bible that did not die, was a prophet during the reign of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel in Israel. He was known for his boldness in speaking out against the idols and false gods that the people of Israel had begun to worship. He also performed many miracles, such as bringing fire down from heaven to prove that the God of Israel was the true God. 2 Kings 1 verse 10 to 12. He was used by God to bring about repentance and reform in Israel. During this time, the Israelite nation strayed from the faith of their forefathers, forsaking God to worship pagan idols. This shift towards idolatry was instigated by the wicked king Jeroboam. Jezebel, the wife of King Ahab, was particularly devoted to idol worship and influenced her husband to build a temple for the pagan god, Baal. This move led many Israelites astray from the true God's worship. Witnessing the spiritual decline of his nation, the prophet Elijah took a stand against King Ahab's impiety, urging him to repent and return to the God of Israel. However, the king remained obstinate and unwilling to heed Elijah's counsel. In response, the prophet Elijah prophesied that there would be a severe drought as a punishment, with no rain or dew falling upon the land until he prayed for its end. For 3.5 years the heavens remained closed, causing widespread drought and famine throughout the entire land. The story of Elijah not dying and going straight to heaven is even more clearer and more dramatic than Enoch's. Elisha, Elijah's assistant, was forewarned of his departure in 2 Kings 2:3, which reads, "Now the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, 'Do you know that the Lord will take away your master from over you today?' On the day chosen by God, Elijah departed from Gilgal, accompanied by Elisha. They arrived at the banks of the Jordan River, followed by 50 young prophets from Jericho, who stood at a distance observing. Elijah took his cloak and, folding it like a staff, struck the water, causing it to part. The prophets crossed the river on dry ground. Walking alongside Elisha through the divided waters, Elijah inquired if there was anything Elisha desired before God took him away. Elisha expressed his wish for a double portion of his master's divine spirit. Elijah assured him that while it was a significant request, it would be granted if Elisha witnessed his master's ascent to heaven. As they continued their conversation, a fiery chariot, pulled by fiery horses, suddenly appeared, separating them. Elijah ascended to heaven in a whirlwind, as depicted in 2 Kings 2:11. Number 3. Melchizedek. Few mysteries of the Bible have attracted more interest than the enigma of the identity of Melchizedek. This is widely considered to be the biggest mystery in the Bible. In Hebrews 6, verse 19 to 20, you'll find that Jesus Christ, following his resurrection, holds the position of a high priest after the order of Melchizedek. The Moffat translation puts it more straightforwardly, stating that Jesus holds an equivalent status with Melchizedek, described as with the rank of. So who is Melchizedek? First, it's worth noting from both the Old and New Testaments that the enigmatic figure, Melchizedek, served as a priest of the Most High God, as detailed in Genesis 14. During this time, there was a war between a number of ancient city-states in Canaan and Mesopotamia, and Abraham's nephew Lot and his family had been captured. When one of Lot's people managed to escape and deliver this news to Abraham, Abraham took action by arming 318 of his own servants and pursuing the invaders. He tracked them down and succeeded in rescuing Lot and his family, safely returning them to the Canaanite cities. Upon Abraham's return from this daring rescue mission, a mysterious figure suddenly appears on the scene. It was Melchizedek who came forward to minister to Abraham. Here is the account in Genesis 14, verses 18 to 20. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High. And Melchizedek blessed Abraham and said, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, maker of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of everything. That is, a tithe of all. For a tithe means a tenth. Number 1. Notice that Melchizedek was king of Salem. That is the city of Jerusalem. Salem comes from the Hebrew word meaning peace. That would make Melchizedek the king of peace. Number 2. The Hebrew name Melchizedek itself means king of righteousness. Number 3. The same individual is mentioned in Psalm 110:4. Speaking prophetically of Christ, David stated, The Eternal hath sworn, and will not repent, Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. This verse is quoted again in Hebrews 5, verses 6 to 10. Hebrews 7:3 it states, Melchizedek had no father or mother, and there is no record of his ancestors. He was never born and never died, but his life is like that of the Son of God, a priest forever. This is our proof from the Bible that he never died. But this still does not solve our mystery. So again, who is he? Who really knows? Many people believe Melchizedek was Jesus Christ. Let's explore this narrative a bit. In Hebrews 7, verse 20 to 21, God took an oath that Christ would always be a priest forever. The text reads, The Lord has sworn and will never change his mind. You are a priest forever, with the rank of Melchizedek. Also, his name being King of Righteousness is one point many stand on to make this claim. Jesus himself said in Matthew 19, verse 17, There is none good but one, that is God. Human self-righteousness is, before God, as filthy rags. None can be righteous but God. So for Melchizedek's name to mean the King of Righteousness does give this narrative some life. Back to Hebrews 7, remember that this man was the King of Peace. Salem, from which Jerusalem was named, means peace. And remember, Jesus is called the Prince of Peace, meaning no human being could be the King of Peace. Romans 3 verses 10 and 17 tells us that there is none righteous. And the way of peace have they not known. So how can a man be both the King of Righteousness and peace? Furthermore, the fact that Melchizedek was without mother, without father, without descent, or as the Phillips translation renders it, he had no father or mother and no family tree, means he was not born as human beings are. This does not mean that Melchizedek's records of birth were lost. Without such records, human priests could not serve as depicted in Ezra 2:62. The scripture also reveals that Melchizedek is continually a priest. We also know that God took an oath that Christ would always be a priest, and his priesthood is in the order of Melchizedek. Could they be the same person? This is where this narrative, however, gets a bit tricky. We do know that in the future, in the New Testament, Jesus has a father and mother and dies and resurrects. So could Melchizedek really be Jesus even though Jesus had a father, mother, and died? Who really knows? The folks on the other side of the aisle make a claim that the author of the book of Hebrews was speaking figuratively and that he rather meant Melchizedek was like Jesus or resembled Jesus. They also make the claim that in virtually all other appearances of God in the Bible, the person who is meeting with God has some awareness that they have been in the presence of the divine. But in the story of Melchizedek, there is no moment where Abraham acknowledges that he has been in the presence of God. True, Melchizedek abruptly appears and disappears from the narrative, but there is nothing in Genesis 14 that explicitly leads us to see that God himself has been present. Another point they make is that earlier in Hebrews 5 verse 1, the author says that every priest is chosen from among men. The whole point of the priesthood is that a chosen and anointed human stands before God as our representative. Because Jesus was fully man in the New Testament, along with being fully God, he was able to serve as our perfect priest. But before Jesus, the ultimate priest, the Bible clearly teaches that priests are humans who serve in a representative role. However, these differences of opinion should neither distract us nor divide us. At the end of the day, what matters most is that we have a great high priest named Jesus, one who has paid for our sin, who pleads our case before God, and who loves us with an everlasting love.
What if I told you that the Philippines, though not directly mentioned in the Bible, could hold a key role in God's prophetic timeline? A nation of over 7,000 islands, known for its natural beauty and rich culture, may have deeper spiritual significance than most realize. Could the Philippines be tied to ancient lands, such as Ophir, a place of immense wealth described in Scripture, or could its current position as a Christian stronghold in Asia place it on the prophetic stage in the last days? As we explore these questions, we'll uncover how the Philippines could play a surprising and important role in biblical prophecy. The Bible tells us that after the Great Flood, Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, repopulated the earth, Genesis 10. Each son became the forefather of different peoples and nations. Some scholars and historians propose that the Filipino people, with their diverse roots, could be linked to both Japheth and Ham, 2 of these patriarchs. Japheth, Noah's eldest son, is traditionally seen as the ancestor of many European and Asian nations. His descendants, including Gomer, Magog, and Madai, spread far and wide across the globe. Among Japheth's descendants is Togarmah, the son of Gomer, whose line is believed to have spread into parts of Asia. Some scholars speculate that Togarmah's descendants may have eventually reached the Philippines, making Filipinos part of the Japhethite line. Meanwhile, Ham, Noah's second son, is considered the father of African and some Asian nations. His sons, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan, gave rise to ancient civilizations in Africa and the Middle East. There's a possibility that Ham's descendants migrated further into Southeast Asia, potentially intermixing with Japheth's descendants. This unique blend of Japhethite and Hamite ancestry may explain the Filipino people's cultural diversity and adaptability. If the Filipinos are descendants of both Japheth and Ham, they embody a rare combination of 2 of the most influential biblical lineages, blending cultures and histories that trace back to the Table of Nations in Genesis 10. Japheth's descendants are blessed in the Bible with expansion and dominion. Genesis 9:27 tells us, "May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant." This blessing of growth and influence could explain why Japheth's descendants spread across Europe and Asia, playing major roles in history. Ham's descendants, though often associated with the curse on Canaan, Genesis 9:25, gave rise to powerful civilizations, including Cush, Ethiopia, Mizraim, Egypt, and Canaan, the land later occupied by Israel. Though Ham's descendants experienced challenges, their civilizations were central to biblical narratives and world history. If Filipinos indeed descend from both Japheth and Ham, this suggests that they share in the blessings of expansion and resilience. The Philippines' ability to influence cultures worldwide through its diaspora and its enduring faith could be seen as part of this prophetic blessing. The mystery of Ophir is one of the most intriguing enigmas in the Bible. Ophir is referenced as a distant land, rich in gold and valuable resources. 1 Kings 10:22 tells us that King Solomon sent ships to Ophir every 3 years, bringing back gold, silver, ivory, and exotic animals. It was a land known for its unparalleled wealth, and Solomon's access to it added to the grandeur of his reign. For the king's ships went to Tarshish with the servants of Huram. Every 3 years they came back, bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. 1 Kings 10:22. So where is this mysterious land? Scholars have debated its location for centuries, with theories ranging from Africa to South America. However, some modern researchers propose that the Philippines could be the ancient land of Ophir. The Philippines is renowned for its rich deposits of gold, historically traded even before Spanish colonization. Pre-Hispanic Filipinos had gold in such abundance that it was crafted into jewelry, clothing, and ceremonial items. The country's ancient maritime trade routes with India, Arabia, and China support the possibility that this Southeast Asian archipelago could have been a major trading partner during the time of Solomon. The idea of the Philippines as Ophir aligns with the description of a faraway land rich in natural resources, accessed by sea, which brought immense wealth to Israel. While there is no conclusive evidence that the Philippines is the biblical Ophir, the parallels in geography and historical trade routes make this theory worth exploring further. Alongside Ophir, Tarshish is another mysterious location referenced in the Bible, often in connection with maritime trade and wealth. Some scholars believe that Tarshish refers to Spain, while others suggest it could be another far-flung trading destination. Isaiah 69 speaks of ships coming from Tarshish to bring offerings of silver and gold. Surely the islands look to me. In the lead are the ships of Tarshish, bringing your children from afar with their silver and gold, to the honor of the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, for he has endowed you with splendor. Isaiah 69. If Ophir represents a distant wealthy land, Tarshish symbolizes global trade and the exchange of wealth with nations. Could the Philippines, an archipelago long engaged in maritime commerce, be linked to this broader biblical narrative of seafaring nations? The traditional interpretations place Tarshish in the west, the Philippines' ancient trading history with the Middle East and the broader Asian continent suggests a possible connection. While the Philippines' connection to biblical lands, like Ophir or Tarshish, is speculative, its Christian identity is undeniable. The Philippines stands as one of the largest Christian nations in the world, and uniquely, it is the most dominant Christian country in Asia. Over 80% of its population is Catholic, a legacy of Spanish colonization, which brought the gospel to the islands in the 16th century. Matthew 24:14 gives a clear prophecy about the gospel being preached to all nations before the end comes. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. In this context, the Philippines is a spiritual stronghold in a region dominated by Islam, Buddhism, and Hinduism. Its influence extends far beyond its borders. Filipino missionaries and workers, often serving in countries with little access to Christianity, carry their faith with them wherever they go. The Philippine diaspora, which is estimated to include more than 10 million people, can be seen as a modern-day missionary force, spreading the gospel in regions where traditional missionaries might struggle to gain access. The Filipino diaspora has brought Christianity to remote parts of the world, from the Middle East to Europe, fulfilling the Great Commission of Matthew 28:19. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Could this missionary zeal be part of the fulfillment of end-time prophecy? The Bible emphasizes that the gospel must be preached to all nations before the end comes, and the Philippines' role as a global ambassador of the Christian faith may indicate its part in this grand prophetic timeline. Another significant element to consider is the Philippines' support for Israel. In Genesis 12:3, God promises to bless those who bless Israel. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. The Philippines has a remarkable history of standing with Israel during critical moments in world history. During World War II, under President Manuel L. Quezon, the Philippines offered refuge to over 1,200 Jewish families fleeing the Holocaust, a move few nations were willing to make at the time. Later, in 1947, the Philippines was the only Asian nation to vote in favor of the UN resolution establishing the State of Israel, solidifying its friendship with the Jewish nation. This diplomatic and humanitarian support places the Philippines in alignment with God's promise to bless nations that stand with Israel. In light of biblical prophecy, this may signal a divine favor upon the Philippines that has lasting implications for the nation's role in the unfolding end-time events. As we turn our eyes toward the future, some speculate that the Philippines may play a more direct role in end-time prophecies. While it may not be explicitly named in the Bible, its geopolitical position and spiritual heritage may place it within the broader context of global events leading up to Christ's return. In Revelation 7:9, we read about a great multitude from every nation, tribe, and tongue worshipping before the throne of God. After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. Could the Philippines, with its global diaspora and powerful Christian witness, be part of this prophetic multitude? Filipino Christians are already spread across the globe, from Saudi Arabia to North America, living out their faith and sharing the gospel. Their participation in global missionary efforts and their presence in foreign lands could symbolize the fulfillment of Revelation's vision of a global Christian community gathered to worship God in the end times. In addition, as geopolitical tensions rise around the world, particularly in the Middle East, the Philippines' strategic alliances and connections could also place it within the larger narrative of nations involved in end-time conflicts. Southeast Asia is becoming an increasingly critical area in global affairs, and the Philippines' role as a key ally of Western powers, combined with its support for Israel, suggests that it could have a role to play in the final chapter of human history. Though the Philippines is not directly mentioned in Scripture, the nation's potential ties to Ophir, its deep Christian roots, and its support for Israel may place it on the map of biblical prophecy in a more profound way than previously imagined. The Philippines stands as a beacon of faith in a region where Christianity is a minority, and its global missionary impact is undeniable. Could the Philippines be part of God's end-time plan, bringing the gospel to the farthest corners of the earth before Christ's return? Its support for Israel, its unique position in Asia, and its expanding Christian influence all point to a possible divine role in the unfolding of future events. Tell me what you think in the comments. Is it possible that the Philippines has a hidden role in biblical prophecy? Be sure to subscribe to Deep Bible Studies to explore more surprising connections between ancient prophecy and modern nations.
For 430 years, the children of Israel lived in the land of Egypt. Exodus chapter 12 verse 40. Long ago, in the ancient land of Egypt, a story began that would shape the destiny of a nation. It all started with a man named Joseph, a Hebrew sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. Through a series of divine interventions and his remarkable ability to interpret dreams, Joseph rose from the depths of prison to become second in command to Pharaoh himself. Under Joseph's guidance, Egypt prospered during a time of great famine, thanks to his foresight in storing grain. His family, including his father Jacob and brothers, eventually joined him in Egypt, where they were welcomed and settled in the fertile region of Goshen. For generations, the Israelites thrived in Egypt, multiplying into a large and prosperous community. However, as time passed, a new pharaoh rose who did not remember Joseph's contributions. Fearful of the growing strength of the Israelites, he imposed harsh slavery upon them, forcing them into hard labor, building cities and monuments that would glorify Egypt's power. What began as a prosperous sojourn under the favor of Pharaoh, thanks to Joseph's wisdom and divine guidance, eventually devolved into a bitter existence of bondage and oppression. The initially favorable conditions of settlement in Goshen, where the Israelites flourished and multiplied, gradually gave way to systematic enslavement. The new Pharaoh, who arose, who did not know Joseph, Exodus chapter 1 verse 8, saw the growing numbers of Israelites as a threat to his kingdom's stability. In response, he imposed harsh labor upon them, compelling them to toil in building cities and monuments, such as the storied treasure cities of Pithom and Ramses, Exodus chapter 1 verse 11. The Israelites, once favored guests of Egypt, now found themselves shackled by the chains of forced labor. From dawn till dusk, they toiled under the scorching Egyptian sun. Their sweat mingling with the dust of the earth, they were forced to mold into bricks. These bricks were then used to construct the grand edifices that symbolized Egypt's might and splendor. Their daily lives were marked by relentless labor and harsh treatment from their Egyptian taskmasters, who showed no mercy. They made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. Exodus chapter 1 verse 14. As the oppression grew, Pharaoh implemented even more drastic measures. In a bid to control the Israelite population, he decreed that all newborn Hebrew boys were to be cast into the Nile River. A chilling edict designed to break the spirit of the Israelites and curb their growth. This cruel decree is vividly captured in Exodus chapter 1 verse 22. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, Every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. Despite these efforts, the Israelites continued to grow in number and strength, fueled by their enduring faith and resilience. Among them was a child named Moses, who would one day rise as their deliverer. Born under the shadow of Pharaoh's decree, Moses was hidden by his mother for 3 months before being placed in a basket and set adrift on the Nile. Found and adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, Moses was raised in the Egyptian court, unaware of his destiny. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, Because I drew him out of the water. Exodus chapter 2 verse 10. Moses' early life in the Egyptian palace gave him a unique perspective on the plight of his people. He witnessed firsthand the brutality of their oppression, which eventually stirred him to act. One day, seeing an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, Moses intervened and killed the Egyptian, an act that forced him to flee into the desert of Midian. There, he encountered God in the form of a burning bush, receiving the divine mandate to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. And I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. Exodus chapter 3 verse 9. Back in Egypt, the conditions for the Israelites continued to deteriorate. Their cries for deliverance echoed in the heavens, and their daily lives were marked by unrelenting hardship. They worked under the constant threat of the whip, their bodies bent and broken by the weight of the tasks imposed upon them. Yet, amidst the suffering, they held on to the hope of deliverance, a promise passed down from their ancestors. Pharaoh's heart grew harder with each passing day, and his edicts more severe. He demanded increased brick production without providing the necessary straw, pushing the Israelites to the brink of despair. So the people were scattered abroad throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble instead of straw. And the taskmasters hasted them, saying, Fulfill your works, your daily tasks, as when there was straw. Exodus chapter 5 verses 12 to 13. This impossible demand led to even greater suffering, as the Israelites struggled to meet their quotas. Facing brutal punishment when they inevitably fell short, The story of Israel's enslavement in Egypt is not just one of physical bondage but also of spiritual endurance. Their identity as a people chosen by God was tested daily, yet they remained steadfast in their faith. They continued to observe the traditions and customs passed down from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, keeping alive the promise of a future liberation. The long years of bondage also had a profound impact on the cultural and social fabric of the Israelite community. They developed a deep sense of solidarity and shared identity, forged in the crucible of shared suffering. Their experiences in Egypt would shape their collective memory and identity, influencing their laws, customs, and religious practices long after their eventual exodus. Moses found refuge in the land of Midian, where he started a new life. He married Zipporah, the daughter of Jethro, a Midianite priest, and became a shepherd. It was during this period of exile that Moses had a transformative encounter with God. One day, while tending to his flock, he came across a burning bush that was not consumed by the fire. Intrigued, Moses approached the bush, and from it, God called out to him. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush, and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. Exodus chapter 3 verse 4. In this profound moment, God revealed his plan for Moses to return to Egypt and lead the Israelites out of bondage. God assured Moses of his presence and power, giving him signs to perform before Pharaoh to demonstrate his divine authority. Despite his initial reluctance and self-doubt, Moses accepted the mission, equipped with the promise of God's guidance. Upon his return to Egypt, Moses, along with his brother Aaron, confronted Pharaoh, demanding the release of the Israelites. And afterward Moses and Aaron went in, and told Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness. Exodus chapter 5 verse 1. Pharaoh, however, was unmoved and refused to let the Israelites go, even increasing their labor as punishment for their defiance. God then unleashed a series of 10 devastating plagues upon Egypt, each demonstrating his power and challenging the Egyptian gods. The plagues began with the waters of the Nile turning to blood and included frogs, lice, flies, pestilence on livestock, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and finally, the death of the firstborn. Each plague further hardened Pharaoh's heart, but also demonstrated God's supremacy and his commitment to liberating his people. The final plague, the death of the firstborn, was the most catastrophic. To protect the Israelites, God instructed them to sacrifice a lamb and smear its blood on their doorposts. This event, known as Passover, signified the angel of death passing over their homes. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of Egypt. Exodus chapter 12 verses 12 to 13. The death of Pharaoh's own firstborn son finally broke his resistance. He summoned Moses and Aaron in the night and ordered them to take the Israelites and leave Egypt immediately. The Israelites left in haste, taking with them unleavened bread, their flocks, herds, and the riches given to them by the Egyptians, fulfilling God's promise to Abraham that his descendants would leave their bondage with great wealth. However, Pharaoh's change of heart was short-lived. As the Israelites journeyed towards the Red Sea, Pharaoh and his army pursued them, intending to bring them back to Egypt. Trapped between Pharaoh's forces and the sea, the Israelites despaired, but Moses assured them of God's deliverance. And Moses said unto the people, Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Exodus chapter 14 verses 13 to 14. God commanded Moses to stretch out his hand over the sea, and as he did, the waters miraculously parted, creating a dry path for the Israelites to cross. The Egyptians pursued them into the sea, But once the Israelites had safely reached the other side, Moses stretched out his hand again, and the waters returned, drowning Pharaoh's army. This miraculous event marked the definitive end of Israel's bondage and the beginning of their journey to the Promised Land. Relationship with Pharaoh and political conflict. Pharaoh, the sovereign ruler of Egypt, was viewed as a god-king, wielding absolute power over his subjects. The new Pharaoh, who did not remember Joseph and his contributions, saw the burgeoning Israelite population as a direct threat to his control. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass, that, when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Exodus chapter 1 verses 8 to 10. In an effort to curb their growth and subdue their potential threat, Pharaoh subjected the Israelites to harsh slavery, assigning them to arduous labor in the construction of his cities and monuments. This oppressive regime was designed to break their spirit and reduce their numbers, but it only served to strengthen their resolve and unity. When Moses and Aaron, acting on God's command, first approached Pharaoh to demand the release of the Israelites, they were met with scorn and defiance. Pharaoh dismissed their plea, retorting, Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I know not the Lord, neither will I let Israel go. Exodus chapter 5 verse 2. Pharaoh's refusal was not just a rejection of Moses' request, but a direct challenge to the authority of the God of Israel. This confrontation marked the beginning of a series of dramatic events, as God unleashed 10 plagues upon Egypt to compel Pharaoh to release the Israelites. Each plague was a direct assault on the Egyptian pantheon and Pharaoh's perceived divinity, demonstrating the power and supremacy of the God of Israel. The plagues began with the waters of the Nile turning to blood, a symbol of Egypt's lifeline being tainted. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all their pools of water, that they may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood, and in vessels of stone. Exodus chapter 7 verse 19. Despite the severity of the plagues, Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. He vacillated between moments of apparent concession and stubborn defiance, often agreeing to let the Israelites go only to retract his promise once the plague was lifted. This pattern continued through plagues of frogs, lice, flies, pestilence on livestock, boils, hail, locusts, and darkness, each escalating in intensity and devastation. One of the most significant aspects of this conflict was the power struggle not just between Moses and Pharaoh, but between the God of Israel and the gods of Egypt. Each plague was a targeted strike against specific deities worshipped by the Egyptians, undermining their perceived power and legitimacy. For example, the plague of darkness directly challenged Ra, the sun god, while the plague of boils humiliated the Egyptian priests who were seen as intermediaries between the gods and the people. As the plagues progressed, the Egyptian people began to suffer greatly, and even Pharaoh's own officials urged him to relent. And Pharaoh's servant said unto him, How long shall this man be a snare unto us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Knowest thou not yet that Egypt is destroyed? Exodus chapter 10 verse 7. Despite the mounting pressure and the evident devastation, Pharaoh's pride and stubbornness prevented him from yielding. The final plague, the death of the firstborn, was the most catastrophic and personal for Pharaoh. God instructed the Israelites to mark their doorposts with the blood of a lamb so that the angel of death would pass over their homes, sparing their firstborn. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I'm the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of Egypt. Exodus chapter 12 verses 12 to 13. The morning after this final plague, Egypt was plunged into mourning as every Egyptian household experienced the death of their firstborn, including Pharaoh's own son. This devastating loss finally broke Pharaoh's resistance. He summoned Moses and Aaron in the night and ordered them to leave Egypt immediately with all the Israelites. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Rise up, and get ye forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go, serve the Lord, as ye have said. Exodus chapter 12 verses 30 to 31. However, Pharaoh's decision was short-lived. As the Israelites departed and journeyed towards the Red Sea, Pharaoh's heart hardened once more. He mustered his army and pursued the fleeing Israelites, determined to bring them back. This pursuit culminated in one of the most dramatic events in biblical history, the parting of the Red Sea. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. Exodus chapter 14 verse 21. The Israelites crossed the sea on dry ground, but when the Egyptian army attempted to follow, the waters returned, drowning Pharaoh's forces. This miraculous deliverance cemented the Israelites' freedom and marked the definitive end of Pharaoh's pursuit. And the waters returned, and covered the chariots, and the horsemen, and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. Exodus chapter 14 verse 28. The relationship between Pharaoh and the Israelites, characterized by confrontation and divine intervention, is a central theme in the story of the Exodus. It highlights the struggle for power, the resilience of faith, and the ultimate triumph of divine will over human obstinacy. This narrative not only underscores the significance of Moses' leadership but also the profound impact of God's miracles in liberating his chosen people from the bondage of Egypt. In conclusion, the story of Israel's slavery in Egypt, their enduring faith, and ultimate deliverance is a profound testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of divine intervention. From the initial settlement in Egypt under Joseph's guidance to the harsh conditions of bondage imposed by a fearful Pharaoh, the Israelites' journey is marked by unwavering faith and perseverance. Moses' pivotal role, from his miraculous rescue as a baby to leading his people through the Red Sea, exemplifies the extraordinary impact of leadership and faith in overcoming insurmountable odds. The relentless struggle between Moses and Pharaoh, the dramatic plagues, and the final miraculous deliverance underscore the theme of liberation and justice. The story is not only a cornerstone of religious faith but also a timeless narrative of hope and the triumph of good over evil. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content.
Within the Bible lies everything from the beginning to the end of the world. This book alone can guide you to salvation and provide all the knowledge you need. However, this would have been more evident if the early Christian fathers hadn't meticulously edited certain books and sentences out of fear of revealing the truth to the people of their time. Today, we are ready to uncover the full truth the Bible holds. With the help of other cultures, ancient texts, and myths, we will, for the first time, fill in the gaps and see the Bible in its entirety. As it is said, near the end times, all secrets will be revealed for everyone to see. If something is true, it will remain true from every perspective, just like the sun, known by many names in different languages, yet still the same sun in the sky. Similarly, despite the diversity of cultures and myths, the true creation happened in one beginning. If it is the truth, all sides will recognize it as the only truth. This is the truth you must not miss. Let's begin with the very first Genesis. Adam. The traditional account of Adam, as found in the book of Genesis, gives us the foundational narrative of his creation, his life in the Garden of Eden, and his eventual fall. But what if there's more to Adam than what we've been told? What if Adam was more than just the first man? What if he was a giant, towering above the earth in a way that defies our imagination? In the ancient Jewish tradition, as recorded in the Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin 38b, Rabbi Eliezer said, "The stature of the first man Adam extended from one end of the world to the other." This portrayal of Adam, whose size spanned the entire world, suggests a being of unimaginable scale, a giant in the truest sense. The Midrash Bereshit Rabbah further expands on this, where Rabbi Yehoshua ben Kor has stated, Adam's height was from the earth to the firmament. The life of Adam and Eve, an apocryphal text, gives us another glimpse into Adam's grand stature. It describes him as great and lofty, hinting at a pre-fallen state where Adam was more than just a man. He was a being of significant physical and spiritual magnitude, possibly a giant among the early inhabitants of the earth. Even in the Book of Enoch, we encounter early humanity described as tall and great, with Adam as the first among them, setting the standard for the giants that would later walk the earth. In the Book of the Bee, Adam is described as being very great in stature, a phrase that, while simple, holds the weight of ancient belief in Adam's extraordinary size. The Cave of Treasures adds to this, portraying Adam as taller than all the trees in the Garden of Eden, a giant whose voice could be heard throughout the paradise of creation. Moving into the mystical and Gnostic traditions, Adam is seen not just as a giant, but as a cosmic being in the Apocryphon of John and other texts from the Nag Hammadi library. Here, Adam's presence is vast, encompassing the entirety of creation, a giant, not just in physical form, but in his spiritual essence. Even in Ethiopian traditions, such as the Kebra Nagast, we find hints of Adam's descendants inheriting his great stature, further cementing the idea of a lineage of giants. But the story of Adam as a giant is not confined to the Bible alone. Across different cultures and mythologies, we find similar figures who, like Adam, are portrayed as cosmic giants, the first beings from whom the world was born. In Hinduism, Adam parallels Purusha, the cosmic giant from whose body the universe is formed. The Rigveda 10.90, also known as the Purusha Sukta, describes Purusha as a 1,000-headed, 1,000-eyed, and 1,000-footed giant, encompassing the entire universe. The god sacrificed Purusha, and from his body, the world and all its creatures were formed. The text states, "From his mouth came the Brahmin, from his arms the Kshatriya, from his thighs the Vaishya, and from his..." What is the true meaning of Christmas? Everything you've ever been told about the beginning of the world might just be wrong. That's right. The opening lines of Genesis, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," are often treated like the start of a movie, the first scene of existence itself. But what if I told you there's a world hidden beneath those words, a reality so ancient, so chaotic, and so full of mystery that it rewrites everything we think we know about creation? Before the light, before Adam and Eve, before the Garden of Eden, there was something else. Something the Bible hints at, but doesn't fully explain. Something most people don't even realize is there. Look at the next verse. "The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep." Formless,